February 19, 2022, Langston County Board of Supervisors meeting is called to order.
February 24th,
Oh,
2022, joint session with the school board and the board of supervisors. School board is called to order.
All right, let me correct it. Did I say 22? February 24th, all right.
That's okay, you can call
Go
it
back in
whatever
time.
you want.
Yeah.
Crystal will fix it in a minute.
All right. All right, so we've gotten together here for the board. We can go through this is the work session for the school board and the board of supervisors here. And Mr. Gill or Mr. Russell, want to start off? Let me start off, Ms. Gabb.
He's looking at you.
I'm sorry, what did you do?
All right, I'm giving it over to you.
Okay.
Would
And
you
I'm
like to start
going to
off?
give it to
Yeah.
Mr. Russell. You
Hey.
can't spring this stuff on me, Mr. Palin. I'm getting old, okay?
Hey, Glenn, give me PC two.
Okay, Mr. Russell.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be here to present tonight. We're here tonight to present to you our initial proposal for budget. I won't bore with you with some of the definitions, but again, we're required to prepare this for the school board, and it is an estimate, as always. As we're going through, are you bringing that up? on-
It's coming up. It's got to warm up, so
Okay.
you got a few more seconds to fill.
All right. Well, let me apologize for not double-checking my work. The last two pages, the revenue and expenditures did not print out, but you do have them in your presentation on your computer, so I apologize for that.
I see it
And we should have them overhead shortly.
now.
Again, the budget process is just a planning tool for us to make sure that we're covering all the needs. It's an estimate, and to make sure we have the instructional resources we need to provide to students. And upon adoption, it does become our primary means of managing the school division expenditures. And when it comes up, we'll hopefully get to the fiscal '23 influencing factors. And if you're there and ready,
I'm not sure why it's not coming back. Glenn's got to take a look at it. No, that's my desktop. We got plenty of time.
plenty of time, yeah. Patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue.
Have to learn to roll with the
There,
punches.
okay.
Spring for chicken. Sounds like a plan to me.
So I will go ahead and skip to the influencing factors, and we'll get those up on the screen in a moment. But right now, what I proposed to the board and we've worked on is teachers' salary increases, teachers 5.5% increase plus a step, and 1.5 for a total of 7%. We're proposing all others of 5% increase. This would have us as a starting teacher salary of $44,546, with a goal of fiscal year '26 having a starting salary of $45,000 a year for a starting teacher salary. That's with a bachelor's degree. This does include an additional $1.1 million in non-recurring state funds for school construction, which we're already planning to use to continue with the HVAC upgrade and the renovation of the middle school into an elementary school. What we're proposing does ask for additional local funds in a total of $93,878. $77,569 would be additional to the general fund. $16,309 additional to the textbook fund, and that would be 0.8% increase in local funds over last year, and the request to ask.
Mr. Russell, mind if we back up to salary increases?
Yes, sir.
The teachers have 5.5% increase plus a step, which gives them a total of 7%.
Yes, sir.
I always like to see, for the school system, all employees getting the same thing, the same pay increase for.
Yes, sir.
When you saw all others, that's custodians, secretaries, and so on. Who else does that include?
Administration,
Administration too, and they earn.
office staff.
Yeah, and they all earn it. I'd like to see that 7%. I'd like to see it equal all the way across the board. I've always argued for that. And when you look at your custodians and your cafeteria workers and your secretary, they're the ones that are making the least amount of money. So that 7%, when you look at it as a total picture, will be very minimal amount of increase for the budget.
Well, I have a different proposal adding to what we're talking about, so I can certainly adjust that. I don't disagree with you, especially under COVID. We've learned that one person's just as valuable as the next.
Yeah.
Our discussions have been, we're falling behind in teacher salary, even though we're increasing it every year. And we're not gonna be able to improve our school system and outcomes without increasing teacher salary.
I
So
agree with
our
that.
discussion was 5% is more than we typically get, which was where the conversations initially started. But we have to do something about teacher salaries,
I
so.
agree with that.
And I don't think every year we're gonna be able to do the same for everyone and get those teacher salaries up there. So the reason we didn't propose the same this year is because, you know, the next 2, 3, 4 years, there's gonna have to be a distinction. Because, and I'll give you an example, and I think Northumberland, I don't know what their current budget is, but what I'm hearing they're proposing, it could be close to $47,000 starting salary, maybe more. So if that's actually the case, and I don't know, is it fair? But if that's the case, we're already behind. So while I'd love to recommend that for everyone, at some point, and I don't want to draw the distinction, we're going to have to keep moving these teacher salaries up. So if you recommend we go back and do 7 this year and see what the implication is, it's called the school board today and spoke to them about, I would like to see, and we're going to go back and sharpen our pencils and try to find efficiencies to have our starting salary at least 45, which is an additional, it's 8.07 total, so it's additional 1.07%. I'm going to try to do that without asking for more money. I'm certainly happy to go back, and I know the staff would love to, but I think we're going to be faced in the near future with tough decisions of, we're not going to be able to give all the staff and give the teachers the same and get where we need to get to in salary. So I'm open to suggestions in how we do that, because I for one, like, it's been a complete team effort to keep schools open, to keep schools clean, to get the kids there in buses. So I'm not trying to, by any means, say that one person's more valuable than the other, but competitively, we need certified teachers in the classroom, and I just don't know how we're gonna. So I understand, I agree with you, actually, but I don't know how we're gonna get our teacher salaries there. And I'm willing to bring everybody up, but it's gonna be a tough conversation.
How much difference would it be if you brought the others up to 7%? What would be the additional amount?
Don't know. You have an estimate of that?
Do you have any idea like what each percent of the raise cost
Roughly $126,000.
for each percent?
Well, so when I was on the school board, we adopted the steps, and I know that we've gotten away from them over the course of history, but do all employees have a step in place, or just our teachers?
Right now, just the teachers.
Okay, so that's the difference between the 5.5 and the 7% is the step. So, so with that being said, are we asking you to put in place a step for all employees, or are we just asking to give them additional 1.5%, which is really a step for the teachers? And when we put the step in place, it was to actually to benefit the teachers that have been there for a while. If they've been with us and they've been in the system, then they moved up the scale.
Years ago, when teachers got their steps, and everybody else got the same percentage that the teacher got with the step.
Even the step?
Yes.
And we've done that several years, and this was not the year that I wanted to distinguish, but we're going to end up, if we don't continue raising teacher salaries
I
and be
agree with
competitive, we're gonna be at the bottom. So
Well,
I mean,
your 45,000 in year 26 is still less than the average salary right now in the state of Virginia.
Absolutely.
So we are still way.
so
behind.
I'm trying to get there this
Second.
year by going back and sharpening the pencil.
Sorry,
So
Al.
if I were to give you an estimate,
Northern
Mr.
Neck.
Palin, I believe it would be $35,000 or less to do that. But-
May I interject? This is my first time with this new board, and I think that it's fair to say that when we come to ask for money, we've been as conservative as possible, almost borderline afraid to ask for any substantial amount of money. As a school board member, we would love to give everybody a whole lot of money, but we've been almost made to feel like we can't ask for certain money.
Well, that
So-
may have been, I hate to cut you off, but that may have been in the past, some years ago.
Yeah,
But
so-
that, in the last few years, that hadn't been true.
So I just want to make
Because
sure I'm hearing correctly.
Mr. Russell and this board has worked very well
Yeah.
in the school
So are
together.
you saying that, are you guys encouraging us? Because if you're
Yes,
encouraging us
yes.
to ask for more money, then that's what we're going to do.
Not ask for more money for the sake of all.
For
but
the sake of all of employees?
Yes,
Okay.
But not at the, not at the
at the
means
expense of teachers, no.
hurting the starting
Well, my
salary of
proposal
teachers.
tonight was gonna be to amend this, and I spoke with the board, to actually raise the teachers to 8.07%, which would make the starting salary 45. But I misspoke earlier because 5 to 7 is 2%, not 1. It's actually 51,000 to raise everyone to 7. So it's, what, roughly $26,000, 25,500 per percent. So if we were to move the teachers 8% to go to 45,000, it's actually gonna be, it's gonna be another 26, so it's gonna be $77,000 to go to 8% for all of the staff. That, with the 63,000, is another 140,000 on top of the 93. I will certainly work on my end to do the best I can to get that down, but I don't think I'll get it down to that degree. I was hoping to find enough efficiencies to cover the 8% for teachers, but I'm willing to do whatever you recommend. I think our relationship's been great, and what I want to do is make sure that we're being good stewards of the money, but I also foresee us having to come back next year for more teacher salaries, and the following year for more teacher salaries. Our goal needs to shift from 45 and 26 to 50 and
Yeah, I mean,
26 or
we're already way
27.
behind the national average in the
So-
Commonwealth.
So,
of Virginia.
so, and I appreciate where you are, because it's tough. I mean, we have maintenance men driving special ed students in the afternoon. Everyone is pitched in. So if there's ever a year where I can say, thank you for mentioning that, it's this year. And I'm willing to go back and do it. I'm willing to come back and present, and then we can have a conversation there if that's what you'd like.
I would like, personally, I would like to see that, because, I mean, they're valuable. They're valuable. Let some of them drop out, you already know, we'd have problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. They just-
Absolutely, but what I can't do as a superintendent with instructional staff in the school is raise the salaries for everyone so much that it's hurting me to get certified staff in the classroom. That's where I have to be careful in what I'm doing. And I'm not discounting anyone, because everyone, we're all important. This is a team. Now more than ever, this is a team effort. To keep doors open, to keep kids fed, it's a team effort, so.
Because so many of them just working for insurance, that's it.
Absolutely. And we did in this budget build in some money to cover insurance increases, which we have a meeting on that, and we're expecting in excess of 5%, which is roughly what we put in here. So we're trying, we don't want to give a raise and then offset it with insurance either, so there's money built in for that as well.
What would be the cost if you gave the full 10% of the biennium at one time?
Can I guess
No
on
need to
that?
guess if you don't want to guess.
Yes, if you will.
Probably to move us to a full 10%, not talking about steps or anything, my guess would that would cost us about $120,000 just for the teachers.
120,000?
$120,000 additional to what we've already asked for,
Just for the teachers, though.
just for the teachers, yes, sir. To take us all the way to a 10% raise.
I mean, that's not a terrible big chunk of money really in the grand scheme of this thing. And
Well, it's not,
We've
you
got-
can
I
see
mean,
with our
one-
additional revenue, we've done that, and we're definitely trying to be good stewards of the money. And, you know, when is the right year to come in and ask for the moon? But we have to be competitive. I mean, and that was gonna be my biggest conversation tonight. We have to probably form some committees and start having tough conversations, like, where are we gonna go with this? Because we're gonna blink, and everyone around us is gonna be over 50, and we're gonna have positions unfilled, and we're covering classes with long-term substitutes.
I've been preaching this for a decade and to basically no avail. We keep losing teachers, the problem keeps growing bigger, but no one's really looking at the problem, and that's investing in teachers. We have tons of money for testing and all the other bullshit that we spend money on. We don't spend money on teachers, and that's where we need to really put our investment if we're ever gonna get out of this problem. Or else we're just gonna be sitting here 10 years from now with the same problem grown even bigger and less teachers and the profession degraded even more. Because we're not focusing on the things that matter anymore. And so I'm fully with funding money going to teacher salaries, because that's the one thing that we can put rubber on the road, and that's a real investment that makes a difference in the students' lives. Spending more money on new technology for more testing, or more programs for testing, or more data collection, none of that is doing a damn bit of good. It's wasting money, and it's ruining public education, if anything.
Well, I wanna, you know, back up what Jason said. When I looked at this, when you first gave it to me and had down here 45,000 in year 26, I said, why is it year 26? I mean, that's too far. I mean, we talking 3 years, you know, 3 or 4 years, and we just getting to 45. That's gotta change. I mean, that.
Well, and I'll tell you, and I've been here 8 years now, 5 as the assistant superintendent. I want to say, and Whitney, correct me if I'm wrong, if you jump to 10% now, in that 8 years, that would increase salaries roughly, this is a guess, 43 to 45% in those 8 years. So that's how low we were to begin with. So I mean, part of what we're talking about when we talk about the condition of our schools isn't just the facilities, which we appreciate the partnership on that. We have to fill it with highly qualified teachers, and we need to be competitive. So I appreciate the conversation coming out tonight. It sort of opened up where we were, because we have to get there. Is that this year? Is it another year? I mean, what you're talking about, if she says 126, and you want to get everybody to the same, we're probably looking at an additional $300,000. An additional.
Everybody.
That would cover everybody at 10%, right? That's a good estimate.
That's probably a good estimate.
That's probably a good estimate. So the answer is, if that's what you're asking us to adjust that to, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm also more than happy to go back and see if there's any more efficiencies I can find in order to get that and come back with a different number. I'm more than happy to do that.
I'm not sure we need to be on board with raising everybody 10% across the board. I think 10%, if we want to look at 10%, you know, for the teachers, I can be on board with that, but somewhere along the line, you gotta draw a line.
Well, and that's a tough thing, because you don't, I agree with you, but it's a tough place to be in to say, because you don't want people to think one person is more valuable than the other. I mean,
Well, I understand that.
but we have to fill those classrooms with certified teachers. It's required, right?
So when you go and you solicit new teachers, and you're there with Loudoun County and Virginia Beach, you're all looking at the same,
No.
you're all looking at the same pool. We're all drawing from the same.
Absolutely.
No, but we are, we're drawing from the same pool. And so in the end, it's about money. Money is what drives everything. And for the school board, you're gonna find out that I will fund you. I'm as pro-school as you'll ever be, but my number one priority will be getting the teacher salaries up so that we can get them here. Building a new school that's empty of qualified teachers means nothing.
It really doesn't. I mean, and I appreciate that. And it's a tough conversation we have to have, so.
My thing was not the teachers. I mean, I'm not against them. I mean, I'm right on board
100%.
with everybody with that, but with the others, I mean, when you talking about somebody bringing home $12,000, $13,000, my Lord, a little pay raise for that don't mean a whole lot for them, and for us to fund it, don't mean a great deal either. So,
I'm willing to entertain and do. This was a budget that gave a raise in consideration for what we would have to do next year in the biennium, which right now there's an expectation of 10% over 2 years. But we're not being, 45,000 a year would put us in the middle of the pack of just the 6 or 7 schools in this area.
personally, myself, I'd like to see you go back, sharpen your pencil, and come back with what we've talked about, and let us present the facts to us again.
So
That's-
what are, I guess, and I guess it goes back to the school board too.
Yes,
Are you asking for 10% for all staff?
I am.
Let's look at the different numbers.
Yeah,
If I can just add one thing here, the proposed budget has a 5% increase for all constitutional officers and their staff. So in the overall county budget, you're going to see a 5% requested increase across the board for full-time employees. And the question I'm going to get, if some full-time employees get 10%, why aren't they worth 10%?
I see
So-
that fight coming as well.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
the 5% for all other staff came in
Yeah.
if you're,
Yeah.
it came in a communication with Don of
Yeah.
what we're trying to do for everybody who's not a teacher.
Yeah.
And we tried to align that. So the
Yeah.
5% is actually, that's where it came from.
Good question. The
because-
5% that you are gonna be getting from the rest of the people, I do know that, our maintenance people and our cafeteria people are starting at less than Walmart. Or is that what you're seeing for the rest of your county employees?
I-
Are they starting as low as our employees in the school?
Uh,
'Cause that's
Some
just-
are lower than 40, 44, 5, 6.
No, I'm
5, 4,
talking about
6.
12 and 13,000 a year.
Oh, well, that's part-time pay. I mean, we have some at that level, yes.
We have that at our full-time level
Cool.
for some of our people.
We have, I want to say, well, minimum wage is going up, but we have some barely making minimum wage, yes.
Yeah, we have some
And it
at the
depends on
same,
their-
yes,
It depends on their experience level and what job they're doing,
Yeah.
yes.
but the 10% required by the state is just for the teachers.
Just for the teachers, yes.
Exactly, yes.
So what I'm hearing is, correct me if I'm wrong, that you want us to go back, sharpen our pencil, and give you figures for how much it would cost to do 10%?
yes, and we can handle our administrative, office here.
I mean, this is wonderful. I didn't think I'd ever live to see this. You want us
Ever.
to come back with more money, to ask more
But
money.
if it compromises the starting salary, then I will have a problem with it.
It's wonderful,
Right.
thank you.
Well, I think what we'll do,
We're not talking about the teachers, but, that's.
well, I think when I come back to you, it's a presentation of salaries overall. I can bring cost for teachers at 10%, and I can bring cost for other staff at 5% and 7% and 10%. And then we'll have the different scenarios, 1, 2, and 3, that'll be 10 and 10, 10 and 7, 10 and 5. And that'll tell you what that'll cost.
I think that's.
I think
that's
that
the way
would
to
be-
do it.
I like
That's the
that.
way
Are
to
you
do it.
happy with that?
Yes.
And that'll be,
Yeah.
that'll give an option. Is the school board happy with that? I'm sorry, I don't mean not to ask.
No, no.
Can you
I'm-
please
I'm-
also
yes.
include the starting salary, what each of those would be?
Well,
Gave the-
I'm not gonna change 10% for teachers unless you ask me to. I heard 10%. Do I need to change 10% for teachers?
No.
No,
Now, 10%, we're gonna put them at a starting salary of 45 this coming
No,
up.
that's gonna be over.
10% is gonna be 46,758 something.
46.7.
so in the scheme
That was pretty
of things, where would that put us with, surrounding?
That's gonna put us at number 1 or 2
Okay.
in
We're number
this,
2 right
this
now.
area, but not the region. I mean, you're talking, our region's actually Spotsylvania,
Oh, Lord,
Fredericksburg
yeah.
City,
Yeah.
but it's gonna make us more competitive.
Stick
Will
that
it help
put
us
number 2.
recruit
Right
and
now, we're
retain?
number 2. This is
Absolutely.
the chart I did for my budget.
Dan,
Yes, sir.
if we go to that this year, how will that affect the next few years? What would we be looking at then? I think that's important to us too, as far as looking ahead.
My goal is to get the starting teacher salary to 50,000, now that
Okay.
we've reached 40,000. And what we do is, and Mr. Costello, remind me, we actually have a salary committee that convenes, and typically we have one board of supervisor on it. And what we do is try to map out when that would be and the percents. So I think to better answer your question, if you do 10 this year, there's no obligation for next year.
Okay.
But I would recommend we meet and have this same conversation again, because the more we do, the better off we're gonna be.
I thought I heard there might be another mandate we would have to meet for next year as far as that. Maybe I heard wrong.
10% is for the biennium. So this
Biennium,
biennium is for 2 years, so
Okay, so
we
we
have to
meet
meet
it
that
now.
10%.
Okay.
So next year, if we see things de-escalating as far as, then it may be a 3 and 3. And, you know, we kind of have the conversations to get to an idea. This is a great conversation to have. I honestly didn't think I would see the day either,
Well,
but, so thank you very much.
let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You said your goal was 50.
Yes, sir.
And what's the timeline?
Well, we talked today about doing 45 now, and by 2027, having our starting salary of 50,000. So I haven't gone back to do the percentages or work on that. We just, you know, that gives us like 4 years to get there, 4 fiscal years, I believe. Is that right? 3?
Probably 3.
So that gives us 4 years, so that's roughly,
So if you want to get to the 10%, which would be 8.5 plus the step, your starting salary next year would be 45,813.
45,813.
Right. You do 10%, then you get to the 46, but then are you giving everybody a step or not?
We would want to give a step, so it would be 8.5 in a step or 10?
Plus the step.
Because we finally got the teacher scale back on to where every year's a step instead of 0 through 5.
So how much
and-
does it cost to give, just, if you were just giving a step every year, what would that cost, do you know?
Well, it's a percent, roughly
So
100,
100,000?
roughly 126, I think, if my math is correct. Is that right? Close. That's a number I had now, that may not be, but, because it depends on experience and stuff, but, so what we'll bring to you is 10% plus a step for teachers, and then 5, 7, and 10 for everybody else. Is that a comfort level for everyone? When would you like to
So
do?
if you give 10% plus a step,
That's 11 and a
that's
half.
11 and a half.
So do you want to do 8.5 plus a step? What would the starting salary be for that, 8.5 plus a step?
8.5 plus a step, your starting salary is 45,813.
45,813. That's
When
pretty
you
good.
do
I think
10%,
8.5 in a step is.
Is sufficient? Okay.
Yeah, certainly a lot better.
So let's
than it
do a
was.
total of 10% for teachers, and then we'll have the other scenarios will be option 1, 2, and 3.
Because
and-
you're gonna be coming to us with something very similar.
Yeah.
You have to now.
Well, yeah. And-
5, 7, and 10.
Yeah.
Listen, it's all about us right now, okay? Sorry.
I caught eyes from employees looking at me when it said, y'all said 5, 7, and 10%. So,
Talking to school board superintendent, I think I'm speaking for the board. You said you were surprised that you would have this kind of discussion. We're here to work with the schools, and as long as we can tell that you're upfront, you're honest, and I mean true, out and open and clear, and you're sincere, and you're doing your best to conserve the increases and things of that nature, we know things increase, we're gonna work with you. I think I'm speaking for the entire board here. We'll work with you. If we see something different,
Thank you.
then there's the argument.
Thank you, you're absolutely right. We
No,
keep
and
saying-
I still think we still had to go back through and look for some efficiencies. I wasn't gonna ask for the extra 63. We were gonna try to do that, and one of the things to keep in mind, which we've had a great relationship of, there are oftentimes we unexpend $300,000 through efficiencies in our budget. Now, I'd hate to guess that with the gas prices going up next year, but just knowing in this conversation as we're looking for these efficiencies and bring numbers back, if we still have the relationship to come back, then we're gonna keep penciling down on this. And if we get to the end of the budget and we've overexpended or we're gonna be close to that, then we'll just come back and ask. And that's where we've been in the past. Hopefully, we can just continue that, because that does help with making this more efficient.
It's actually a pretty impressive budget, and y'all done really good, in my opinion, because the composite index went back negatively
80.
in their favor, back to .8, so that cost you a fair chunk of money in itself.
Let me ask you some questions. Looking at page 2 of your budget. I see you have vocational equipment. This year is 200,000.
I think he's looking at the detailed budget.
Yeah,
You're
the
looking at
detailed budget. Yeah, the detailed budget.
Do you have a copy of that? 'Cause I got it if you don't.
I'm only gonna guess and speculate on that, but that probably has to do with more money from the state. And typically, that's on equipment, whether it be electronic stuff, and it's typically through our IT budget. Can you see that, Whitney? Do you know what that is?
'Cause it's not a line item in the past, but it's one for this year, and it's 200,000. Page 2.
It's right here.
Is this the revenue?
Page 2, that's a revenue.
That's the
additional-
revenue.
That's
Oh,
additional
oh,
funds
okay.
coming in.
Yeah, okay.
That's gonna
But-
go to our technology budget, yeah.
Your technology?
Yes.
Okay, good, okay.
Page 2, we actually received extra revenue. That's why we went with, that's how we were able to come in,
The-
giving a decent raise and coming in with asking very little money.
All right, the reason I asked that question, I was hoping you were starting up the vocational program, a local one.
Which one, I'm sorry?
I was hoping you were starting up a local program at the high school, yeah,
We do have in the budget for a CTE position,
okay, I see that.
to do that.
All right, so we talked about that.
Yes, sir.
There's one other, I think one or two other questions I have.
It helps if I understand
All
if
right,
it's a
page-
revenue or the
Page
expenditure.
20,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
this is expenditures, page 20 is improvement of instruction division-wide.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that's probably a math specialist.
All right, and I see FTEs, there are 4, and then you got increase of 192,560.
Is that movement of people? That would have to be.
Maybe not. Okay, this is page 20, he's talking about, right, where is it at, 192.50, yeah, right there.
That's a movement of positions out of one area and into another because of grants
Okay,
and what we're covering in
I
grants.
got you. All right.
It's, obviously you know how those work,
Yeah,
but it's just a shift in that, it's not. And I do know that we do have in there next year for our math specialist to continue.
okay,
And we brought that in this year.
all right, that's all my questions. All right, sir.
Some of these is just actually where you place people, where you see percents go up or down, but the money's the,
Right.
Could you,
Yes, sir.
give any detail of, primary things that you've spent your ESSER-related funds on?
hotspots, HVAC upgrades, including some coming to the renovation of the elementary, the middle. Let me think of what else we've done with that. That wasn't something I thought about. Before I come out, probably have a whole list. Instructional improvement, bonuses for staff. We've done 2 of those. We actually have funding in one of our grants for an additional math specialist. We just haven't been able to hire one. I think that's roughly,
You've got after school.
after school and summer school.
The newest grants you just were awarded.
Yeah. So we have,
What is the primary use of your ESSER 3 funds been for? Because that's a fair chunk of money.
that's HVAC.
Is that what you use most of it for?
That also had some money in there for, some summer programs. It had some money that helped with math specialist. But mostly.
2.1 million of that is going for up, in the original scope of the renovation of the middle school to elementary school, the HVAC wasn't being touched. That's an old 2-pipe system. What we're putting in there is a VRF system, which brings in fresh air outside. It actually allows individual, it's like the system that's in here, and it'll have thermometers in thermostats in each classroom for up and down. So the majority of what we've tried to do is that. We spend it on masks, we've spent it on cleaning supplies,
Yeah, the general
and that's through all of these, so it's been, but the majority of stuff we've tried to do is use those. I try to use them to make sure that we're increasing and improving the air quality as we're going through this, so. But we also need to focus on instruction too, which is math specialist, and one is funded by the locality and one is funded by the grant, right? So we have a vacancy, we just haven't filled that.
Yeah, tough
so-
right now in math. So
Yeah, it really
tough
is,
across the board, but math is especially difficult to fill.
it really is.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and bear with me, because I'm rookie on here, so I may be asking a question that's totally out in left field, but looking at your revenue here, and the state and the federal monies are up quite a bit
Yes,
over
sir.
the local. Will that do you expect that to continue in the future? I'm thinking about the future, or will some of that at some point in the future shift back to the local funds as far as that? And just trying to get a gauge on that, because I see it was like a 1.6 increase on the state funds for the year over where we had been.
Well, the General Assembly reviewed the SOQ funded positions, and we actually received some additional funds for that. We're still not funded where we were in 2007, before the decline, but they are every year trying to look to improve the funding for schools, for the salaries and things. If I were to speculate, at some point, every time we have a little bit of a downturn, I think the good news for us, which is often a bad news for us, but where we're at, our composite index is 80%. If we were in another division that were 30%, I would be a lot more concerned than where we are. I think there may be years in the future where we have to tighten our belts, and we have to ask people to take on more if it gets tough, and we have to, but I do think with what they've passed, they're gonna fund these positions. I don't know if we'll get more next year. There is some speculation of, and I think it's called loss of funding, loss of, I forget what the name is now, I'm not gonna remember, but
Hold
it had,
harmless.
not to hold harmless, it was,
Enrollment
what is
loss.
it called where they, 2007? Not the enrollment loss, it's from 2007 where they didn't fully, the support cap funding. Right now, that's not back where it should be, it's actually pre-2008. If that comes in, we may see more money next year. And the state revenue, I could quote the guy saying, the state's flush with cash, which is the first time I've heard in 8 years I've been doing this job. So I think they're looking to put more support to schools. So I would hope we would have more, but I think it would be another time where we would sit down. If you do 10% this year, we would at least have to do a step next year, but it could, if it's a tough year, then we have that conversation. I think our staff is thankful that we've been able to do raises every year. They're gonna be more than happy if we can pull this off. So, and we'll work with you on that. If I had a crystal ball, I'd say, gas prices are going up, things are gonna slow down. I think we're gonna have a few tough years in the near future.
Yeah, okay.
It's hard
Thank
to
you.
predict what the General Assembly might do for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
moment to moment or
No.
hour to hour.
No doubt, and you gotta be grateful when you get something like that, so.
Well, if we were more dependent on state funds, I mean, it's great because you get more money, but when you have these bad years, it's less of an impact on.
Right.
So I,
They did some really good analysis on what the support cap has cost localities, and it's almost to the tune of somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 a year that we've had to basically back fund, another unfunded mandate that, so over the course of that time, that's basically, I said
It's
about
cost
$7
us-
million.
yeah, I think for us, at our composite index, it was a little over 2 million. I have to go back and look at that. I actually received that information on that, so,
It's been quite costly to localities to pick up that bill.
well, they increased the number of required positions like school counselors, school psychologists, things of that nature. We already had those positions, but we were funding them locally, so this extra money we're getting is actually helping offset the cost of already having those.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we're finally getting that funding, but
It could change, I guess, it's possible,
I think it's always possible,
yeah.
but that was a General Assembly. And I think politically speaking, both sides of the aisle are looking to support schools.
Schools, yeah.
So I think we're in a good spot.
Good spot.
I think the appreciation for schools over the past few years with COVID has increased tremendously everywhere, so,
I would agree. Thank you.
thank you. Hopefully I answered your question. Sometimes I can rattle off in a different direction. It's not intentional.
Okay, any additional questions, gents? Okay,
I have a question, and I don't know what the advertisement requirement is. In order for us to move forward, we have a public hearing on our budget on the 28th, which is typically the process we go. We're obviously not going to be able to meet before then and advertise. When would you be willing to listen to what our recommendation is?
how soon can you come back?
I can have the numbers ready in a week, but I don't know what the advertisement requirement is.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's 1 week for budget matters. And, you can always adopt something less than what you've advertised, but you can't adopt anything higher than what you've advertised. So I don't, did you all even advertise your proposed budget for the public hearing that's Monday night?
No, we typically do not
Okay.
advertise.
So I think we can actually move forward.
Yeah, because I'm speaking now from a Board of Supervisors perspective. We have to advertise it 1 week prior to the public hearing, and then the Board of Supervisors has to wait 7 days before they adopt. They can adopt something that's less than what was advertised, but they cannot adopt anything that's higher. Now, you know, school requirements are different from board, and that's,
I still think we're gonna have to change our calendar, because I wouldn't wanna go through, we have the public hearing and then the adoption the
Right.
following week.
right,
We're not gonna wanna adopt this until we come back and meet with you.
right. Well, you all meet.
And then we may be required to have another public hearing.
I think you will. The Board of Supervisors meets again on March the 10th is when our introduction of the budget will be. So I'm going to need something from you, numbers prior to that, so I can, you know, input those into the overall budget.
Why would we need another public hearing for your budget? If you have a public hearing, you get input on the budget.
We don't. as a
No,
school.
no,
Okay.
well, the board has not had one. They're going to have one
I'm
Monday
just saying
night.
that once they have one, that should be suffice.
So Monday night,
No
we
matter
need
how
to be
much they change
prepared
their
for
budget.
the 3 options we're discussing and propose those. So when we come back to your public hearing, we've proposed the most or the least, and we can move forward.
Yeah, well, their public hearing of the school budget is not until March 31st. So,
Okay.
but I'm saying they'll meet again on March the 10th. So maybe you could come back on March the 10th,
At 5:30,
yeah, with, no, 5 o'clock,
5 o'clock.
with revised numbers. What's that? 5:30. No, it's already been advertised. I mean, it's already been approved, adopted at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Are you all okay with that?
I'm gonna put it on, I don't have my calendar, but I'm gonna put it on here.
Okay.
March 10th at 5.
March 10th at 5.
I mean, is that doable for you?
It absolutely is. And, yes, and I'll try to get you some preliminary numbers.
Yeah, I'm gonna
When
need
we have-
something, I'm gonna need something by like Monday of that week to get it into the overall budget.
Well, we'll have these numbers public for the public hearing on the 28th,
Okay,
so I'll make sure you have that.
all right.
We're gonna have to work hard to get
Shoot,
that done.
shoot me the worst-case scenario. That way I'll advertise, or, you know, when it comes time for me advertising, it'll be high, and then they can adopt something less if they choose to.
Okay. We can do that.
Everybody thoroughly confused?
Not confused.
Do you have do y'all have any questions or comments?
I just would like to personally thank you guys. This has been wonderful. Really, I've been in here going on 7 years, and it's just been awesome. You know, our job is to advocate for the school board by trying to remain efficient with funds. We want to advocate for our school system while trying to be efficient with funds, and so sometimes, you know, with us, we do want to just give a whole lot of money to our people because we know that they deserve it. They take care of our kids. They're teaching our future. But we always want to be mindful about cost. And I definitely want to thank you, Mr. Palin, for thinking about those people who make less money, especially with gas being $3.49. Like Mr. Russell said, they've really been a great asset in helping us with our schools, and so I really appreciate you remembering them in that manner. Thank you so much. Thank all of you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I, like I said, I don't have a problem with teachers getting a pay raise and try to equal, or at least raise our standards up, our pay level up. I can remember on a college campus doing some recruiting, and then this was a young man, and I really wanted him to come to this county. He was excellent. And I just about had him convinced, and he was talking about working, he had a interview with Fairfax, and then he asked me, what's your salary? I said, oh, Lord, we done lost him right there. When I told him the salary, he looked at me, laughed, and walked away. So,
Well, you know, if we get competitive and we continue to have the relationships we do, I think the past few years have been nice to where it's not been ugly and an uproar, and because people also look at that too. The first thing someone young does is Google. So if they see that the boards are fighting and things are ugly, then it's also, is that a place I want to go?
Right.
So the appreciation we have for you guys and knowing that we have a good working relationship, and sometimes we even have tough conversations, that it's still a good relationship. So I want to thank you for that too, because I think that's important. Our community is a reflection of what people want to come into.
Right,
And hopefully, we're helping steer that in the right direction as well, so.
right. And we're talking about attracting businesses and so on into
Absolutely.
this area, and the first thing they're gonna look for is good school system.
They're gonna look for the schools.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate the support.
And water access.
Yeah. All right. Okay, y'all have any other comments or statements or questions?
We're on the path to fix all these issues.
It's good news.
Welcome aboard, Faith.
Thank
And,
you.
so-
Thank you.
Do we need to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yes.
The board chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
any more questions or anything? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Langston County Board of Supervisors, we will recess until 7 PM. All right. States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like for you to remain standing, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lee if he would give us a prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, O Lord, for this day. Heavenly Father, we thank you, O Lord, for your blessings that you poured out upon us. And Heavenly Father, we ask that you would give us the wisdom, the understanding, and discernment, that we may make decisions that benefit all the citizens of this county.
Yes.
And Heavenly Father, we ask that you would keep us and bless us and guide us and lead us. And Heavenly Father, when we finish here, we ask that you would give us traveling mercies back to our homes, and we find everything decent and in order. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
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 Now, you may be seated. Okay. Public input session. You have 3 minutes. Anyone in the audience that wants to speak on anything that's not already written on the agenda, you have 3 minutes to speak, and I will hold up this sign when you have a minute left, so you can know you only have a minute left. And we'll thank you for adhering to that. Is there anyone who wants to speak on any matter? Anybody online? Okay, well, that's over. We'll go on to Virginia Department of Transportation.
You might get out of here early tonight.
Yeah, y'all quick tonight. I think David sent y'all a report. Just want to let you know, trash pickup started on Tuesday.
I saw them out there.
And, but the only other thing I have, we did get the landings for the ferry dredged out, and also we should be good to go for a couple more years on that. Y'all have anything for me?
And the ferry's been painted and all of that and working well.
Yep, that came back, I guess, October-ish,
Okay,
1st November, something like that.
all right. Okay.
I guess, the next thing will be pothole repair across the county. Is there any?
We're, I think, pretty much staying on top of that. I haven't seen a whole lot, it's one or two, and of course with the winter, they're gonna show itself in the next few weeks or whatever, but.
All right. Any other questions, statements, gentlemen?
Just thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, if y'all need anything, let me know.
All right, thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, now we're moving on to presentations. We're gonna start with Tri-Way Trail update, Mr. Carter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, first of all, let me express my appreciation again to Mr. Geezy and Mr. Smith. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to present since they've come on the board, and we appreciate your public service. And so the Tri-Way Trail is an initiative to connect Kilmarnock, Irvington, and Whitestone together with a safe route. And it has a couple of goals. One goal is to improve our economy. We know that we're surrounded by 3 millennial cities. There was a report in 2014 that said that Hampton Roads was the #1 fastest growing millennial city in America, and that Richmond was #2. And we know Washington is millennially oriented. So the idea is, how can we make Lancaster and Northumberland County the 2 most elderly contiguous rural counties in America? So we're trying to figure out, and this is something we're working on the county on the economic development side, the CBRAC committee. We're trying to figure out how we can make the county more attractive to try to change try to be more than just an elderly community. We need jobs for our youth, and we need economic growth. So the trail is to try to help the health of our community by giving a safe route of travel. It connects the vital infrastructure in the lower part of the county. When you connect the 3 towns together, then it also connects the hospital, the new schools, the Compass Entertainment Center, the Tides Inn, the 3 towns. It just connects things together. And we think that millennials living in these urban areas looking for something to do on the weekend will say, well, maybe we should go down and do this trail. We think that economic growth starts with tourism. You've got to get someone here before you can upsell. So we see this as an economic development that nourishes the businesses in the 3 towns and platforms ourselves for growth. And then also helps the health of this elderly community by giving people fresh air, a place to get out and have safe. No one wants to ride their bikes on the edge of the road. So having a safe route, we think will improve our health also. So we have a memorandum of understanding with the county that we entered into. And basically what it does, it deputizes our work committee to be agents of the county. Obviously, the county's got limited staff, so the idea is we're working on the issue for the county. The applications for grants and things will be made by the county. And we are getting ready to go for our first major grant. The U.S. Department of Transportation announced the availability of $1.5 billion on what they're called the RAISE grants. The RAISE is has to do with the Biden administration's infrastructure monies. So in April, we're going to be making our first application for substantial funding. So we're working, we've engaged 3 consultants. We've raised about $180,000 in planning monies for this effort without having to come to the county for any of that. We got $135,000 from the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, one of the largest grants they gave last year. And we took that as a good signal that they thought that this was an important initiative. With that, we've hired 3 consultants. We hired a firm of Charlottesville named LPDA, Land Planning Design Associates. They're helping us with the route, what is the actual trail made from, doing economic benefit analysis for the county, doing all the primary research. Then we've hired Bay Design and our desire to shop local to be doing the surveying and sort of wetlands delineation and those types of issues that will come up. And then we've hired a grant writer called Leahy and Associates out of Richmond to help us put all this information together and to go for the grants. So Leahy and Associates right now is working on a draft for the first grant under this RAISE funding to go in early April. So our goal is to have something for Mr. Gill to review in the next few weeks where we're going to start the drafting of that proposal. And so Mr. Gill is our conduit to the county to be signing for these grant applications on behalf of the county. And Mr. Barnes is an active member of our board and acting as the county's liaison on our committee. And we've got preliminary routing worked out. Right now, the route from Kilmarnock to Irvington is pretty well defined. We've gotten about 95% of verbally accepted. We've got about 95% of the route being donated. There are a couple of property owners that we have not talked to yet, so I'm a little hesitant to sort of lay the route out until I talk to those property owners, but we're substantially informed now in terms of getting the route worked out from Kilmarnock to Irvington. And basically, it's easier than it sounds because if you take the property that I bought, the old King Carter Golf Course, and then you take the Golden Eagle property, the Tide's fully on board, and then you take Westminster, Canterbury, just those 3 properties are about 75% of the distance. Then there are other properties on either end. But the 3 towns are totally on board. The county's expressed their desire to see this activity go on. And we did a questionnaire to the community asking for their input. Someone said, well, how many responses would you expect? Based on prior responses, I said, well, if we got 100 people to respond, I'll be impressed. We had 700 citizens respond, and overwhelmingly in favor. So we think that this is an important initiative that's being supported universally. And I just wanted to come in tonight just to tell you that we're deep into it. We have our consultants going. We're getting ready to go for our first grant, our big grant, and we're feeling optimistic at this point that this really could be something. And with that, I'll be happy to answer. I know you all have gotten, I don't want to belabor this, but I'll answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Jimmy, is there going to be an obligation that we're going to be put some local funding to match any of these grants or put some meat on the bone to show that we're really serious?
And we may need to do that. I know the pressure the county's under with building the new schools and those types of things. So I'm trying to stay away from that, but we may need it. Under this RAISE grant, there's language in there that says that if you are a rural county, you don't need to do a match. If you're an urban county, you have to do a 20% match. So what I've asked the consultant to do is to talk to you can go in under these grants and get some help, call somebody there, and they'll explain to you their scoring system. So I've asked him before we make the grant application to ask about that scoring to see if not having a substantial match hurts our scoring in terms of getting the grant. And so right now, I don't know the answer to that. So I'm trying not to come to you until I have to for funding to see how far we can take this under our own nickel. So we'd be able to use that match or those other funds that we pulled as a match. We think there's value in the rights of ways that have been given in terms of putting value on those. You know, I've got bridges, the old golf cart bridges and those sorts of stuff that will value in there to make sure that we'll try to bump up the local donation figure. But it's an excellent point, Jason, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. Again, we're working on your behalf, but I'm trying not to come to you until I need you. So, but that day may well come, but right now I'm waiting for the consultant to come back. Good.
Will you be looking for funding from the individual towns as well, or is just the county?
The trailheads will be in the 3 towns. So for example, in Kilmarnock, the trailhead we envision as being at the town park. So there'll be some improvements that each town will be doing to sort of build trailheads for this, for parking, bathrooms, you know, charging stations for cars, you know, all those types of things that we're going to see going on in the future. So yes, it's going to be a combined effort from the 3 towns in the town in terms of leaning in on it.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited too.
Jim, all I've heard is it's a walking trail. Are you saying it's going to be bicycle?
Yeah, it's going to be bicycle, walking. At the request of the Tides Inn and a couple other people, we've also just had the consultant look at, could we potentially even put golf carts on there as a mode of transportation? Under the federal funding guidelines, golf carts are not allowed to be on these trails. So we just did a cost analysis that we just did to see, okay, well, how would we accommodate that? And it really would mean building a parallel trail. We think that's too cost prohibitive, too much pain for too little gain, so we've sort of thrown that out. But we do note that it looks like from all the research we've done that e-bikes and e-trikes, 3-wheel vehicles, could potentially be allowed on the trail. So we think that will give mode of transportation for elderly people that need to get out and get fresh air. That if we can't use a golf cart, then maybe there's some alternative transportation modes in there. So we're looking hard at that. And again, you have to appreciate that none of us have been down this road before. So we don't know what we don't know at this point, but we're trying to solve these problems. We've come down the road, and we've got great consultants helping us.
What are you planning to be along the trails?
What's planned to be along the trail?
Yeah, along the trail, yes.
Yeah, so along the trail, obviously, we'll hook together the towns, Mr. Palin, we'll hook together, you know, as I said, the hospital, the free health clinic, the Y, it would come on down and pick up it would connect, we'd have a connector over to the ballpark, the dream field, the new schools, it would pick up the Hills Quarter community, then we'd get into the Tides End community, it would connect Westminster, Canterbury to the 3 towns, and then we're trying to look at other things to juice it up, to make it so that people say, oh, well, let's go down there and see this thing. We're looking at the old town dump, as you may remember, used to be right behind the town park in Kilmarnock, those of us that are old enough to remember that. You know, we're trying to say, well, if that can't be used for anything because it's a dump site, maybe we could use that as a BMX bike track, for example, and add that to the trail. We're looking at sculpture garden. We're looking at maybe putting in one of those fitness station things. I've been wanting to tie the hospital together as a unified campus between the Y and the hospital. So maybe in there's a note of activity with a fitness thing that the Y could use, the hospital could use, rehab could use. So we're looking at that. We're looking at a pond as we come into Whitestone, into Irvington, where maybe we could have a little fishing pond for kids to add to the trail. So we're deep into trying to figure out what are the things that we could reasonably afford that would make the trail more attractive for people who want to come down and meet our benefits of trying to create and boost our economy by getting tourism up. So we're looking into those activities. Good point.
Thought just come to my mind as you're talking about that. What have you considered, or what have you considered concerning safety aspects? You know.
Right. So just like with the golf carts, that's a safety issue. You don't want to put golf carts and joggers and bikers on the same time. So LPDA, our consultants, got a lot of experience with trails, and we're consulting with all the trail authorities to see what the best practices are and what those safety metrics are. So we'll be back to you, report on all that before anything gets signed off. But safety's a key issue that we're looking at.
Okay, all right.
Good. Any other questions?
I guess one final question. Would this be managed or owned by the county, or would it be sort of like a nonprofit or a group? How would the ultimate management
I think
structure?
at this, I think right now we're trying to think of it as a linear park that might be owned by the county. But again, I don't know what we don't know. So when we get into it, I think that's what we're thinking right now. But when we get into it, if we find that that's not the right route, the way to go, then we'll change it. But for the moment, I would say that our perception is that it would be that the rights of way would be dedicated to the county, and that it would be looked at as a linear park, for the lack of a better term.
So maintained by the county?
Well, we're looking into that too. We're trying, within our cost model study, we're saying, all right, what's it gonna cost to maintain this? And how do other lookalike counties fund those types of improvements? Do they have separate taxing districts? You know, if it's improving the economy there, and that goes up, could we take some of those monies to put towards it? Or we're trying to figure that all out, and that's what we're asking the consultant now, to come back to us and show us, you know, we've got a preliminary cost model. Now we're trying to say, we're looking into all that. So we don't have all those answers yet, but we know those big questions are right there that you're gonna want the answers to, and we're trying to pull those answers together for you.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, no further
Thank you
questions?
for the efforts.
Yes,
Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
All
your
right, thanks for
support.
the
We think
update.
this is important. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, broadband authority update for Attorney Craddock.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Hello.
Well, the big part of our report this month is that APB came and did a presentation at our last meeting in February on the status of their project. And you'll see, I went ahead and attached to the Board of Supervisors report this month their presentation, which we kind of clipped off the video from the website. So the public may be interested in looking at that because there is a map which shows the service area that APB will be covering. And that is 2,641 currently unserved locations. And APB is encouraging the residents of Lancaster County to go to their website, which is allpointsbroadband.com, fiber.allpointsbroadband.com, and you can pre-register on their website for service and see if you will be served. And they're encouraging residents who even if they don't think they'll be served to go ahead and register, because they said that they're interested in helping all of the residents of Lancaster County obtain service. And so they're perhaps, it sounds like they're looking at maybe expanding what they'll do beyond this 2,641 locations. So we would encourage everyone to go ahead and do that, because that data can be helpful to All Points. And they received, along with the Northern Neck Planning District Commission, they filed the BATI application, and that was granted very recently, and that was for $3.2 million, which the good news for Lancaster County is that accelerates our completion date by a full year. So first it was going to be by the end of 2024, and now it's going to be by the end of 2023. And so if you think of the whole construction timeline, that's really not that far away. And Dominion and APB are well underway in getting the project going. So we're very excited about that. And they also gave us a little bit more information on like the service levels they're going to have. I don't have the exact ones here, but we can get that information to you. The initial starting out is going to be $59.99 a month. That's the lowest service level. And there'll be a $30 per month discount to eligible households under the Affordable Connectivity Program. And so, for instance, if a child was to receive, assistance with lunch at school, I believe that family would be eligible for the $30 per month discount. So that brings it down, to $30 a month, which is, a lot better. And then the installation fee is going to be $150 per location. And that's within the first 12 months of when service becomes available in your neighborhood. And that's because it's obviously less expensive for them to, while they're there and they have their trucks there to lay the fiber. So even if you have a really long driveway, it's this flat fee of $150. And we find that to be reasonable. Do you have any questions about that
No?
project?
I got a thing in the mail from Dominion, with even a work order number.
Yes.
I got the same thing, and we're basically in the same neighborhood, and, which is a Breeze Line serviced area already. It almost seems like Dominion's moving into wherever they want to.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Now, Dominion didn't present to us, and APB is very careful not to speak for Dominion, but I received the same notice. And that notice is for the middle mile. So just because Dominion is in your neighborhood, it's because it's this middle mile, not the last mile, which is APB, which is like the service, which is going to be the service to your home. So even though some areas are served by ABB and Dominion is going through it as part of their middle mile construction, that doesn't necessarily, this is my interpretation of it, doesn't necessarily mean that APB is going to be there. But I don't have that information. But
it
that's
seems
all
like
the
they
middle
may
mile.
They still could be a competitor, it sounds like, maybe down the line. They may
We
complete-
hope so.
They may
We hope
complete the
so.
requirements of the grant and then proceed on to continue, from a business model, it would seem like they'd do what they have to do to fill the requirements of the grant, and then they would continue to grow out from that point.
So they've not committed to that or spoken about that, but as far as a business goes, that
And it would
seems
seem
like a
that those notices
possibility, and that's the good news for Lancaster County, is we're finally seeing some competition, right? And competition is good.
It would drive Breeze Line to
Options.
be better than they currently are.
Right.
But what you're saying is I still should go online and register.
Yeah, I think that everybody should just, anyone who's interested can go online and pre-register. It doesn't commit you to anything. But that way APB will have the data and they can make their decisions accordingly. If you're interested in that service, I'm not trying to, favor them over any other entity. But
I've registered and I've been texting that information to a number of other people and asking them to do the same and to spread the word.
Yeah, that's great.
You see this packet somewhere.
And we've
Can we
been,
get something is there something on your website, the links to that?
the
or-
links to that are on our website, yes. And there's more information on our website about the program. There's not a lot, only because with our memorandum of understanding and the publicity, public statements, have to be joint and that kind of thing. And so they're supposed to be working with us to develop more information to get it out there.
Yeah, because how is All Points Broadband getting the message out about this registration? 'Cause first, I've really heard of it.
Yeah, right now, they're coming and telling us it's not very aggressive, but as they get into this area, the different areas and they start construction, they have, the flyer program and all sorts of different marketing things they're going to be doing. Right now, I believe their focus has been on, getting the VATI grant done. They've also applied to the Virginia State Corporation Commission to be recognized as a telephone utility. And I could be saying this the wrong way, but anyhow, they just got this certification that they didn't have to do, but it's a benefit because they're going to be further regulated by the SEC, and they also will be able to tap into like Verizon's fiber. And Cherie Kaiser, who is a telecom lawyer, is very informed about this. And if you want more information, I can certainly get it to you. But it's just another advantage that shows that they're a serious competitor in this field. They're a quickly growing company, and they are now very well funded, and they have some very impressive people on their boards and so forth. So it looks like they're going to be quite successful, not just in Lancaster County, but in many, many areas.
Any further questions, gents, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearings. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This first public hearing is a hearing for the request for special exception by Thomas Hyde and Callie Robinson pursuant to Article 5-1-9 of the Lancaster County zoning ordinance. They're requesting a basic seafood processing special exception for a 1.36 acre parcel zoned R1. It's located off of Little Oyster Lane in District 3, tax map number 36A-1-10. The applicants are involved in a small aquaculture facility that they operate together. Most of the activity, as you saw in your memo, takes place offshore. They do oyster aquaculture. They require the ability to land their product to a dock and to be able to bag it or package it, however they're going to sell it, and put it on a truck and take it to market. I don't know if you had a chance to look at their website, but they service farmers markets all over Virginia and various other marketing techniques. So that is kind of the dilemma. As I stated in the memo, we are constantly in a battle of losing the working waterfront in the county, and every time we do, the question is always asked, well, there's no young people stepping up to do this work. If we lose these sites, you know, what's the loss? Well, here's a young couple, Thomas, who grew up here, of course, and has moved back, who need this facility. That said, the special exception process, as I further stated in your memo, looks for the same things that we look for in a 2232 review: your location, your character, and your extent, to make sure that if you allow this exception to the general R1 permitted uses, is it going to fit in the neighborhood? Is it going to be an okay use? And are any impacts from it going to be ameliorated or abated by strategies that the applicants employ or conditions that the board places on that? With that said, I had one conversation with an adjacent property owner. I'll just quickly read that into the record and then read the response from the applicant, because I did give the applicant a chance to respond to that adjacent property owner, since his inquisition was rather polite and was very honest, and I think actually very, very well suited to the special exception process. It reads like this: I appreciate the conversation we had yesterday regarding item 1 for the upcoming Board of Supervisors hearing. In general, I want to support the watermen and the local economy, but I do have some reservations about this special exception since it's so broad. From our conversation, I infer that the current intent of the exception is for simple unloading of oysters from small skiffs. I'm fine with such an exception as long as there are conditions that prohibit the property's use beyond such things. Although the current owner may not wish to do anything more than the current stated use, the exception, once granted, could be expanded if it's not bound more tightly. Here are my specific concerns. 1, the processing goes beyond simple loading and unloading so that noise and smell could impact the residential homes. 2, the commercial traffic should be limited to a specific number of boats moored at a time. 3, the lights are put on timers so that commercial floodlights are not left on all night. Well, that's a common concern we hear with waterfront uses in general. The scope and size of commercial processing facilities on the land are limited. In essence, I doubt any of the landowners want to be looking at or adjacent to a full-blown oyster house. I plan to dial into the meeting tomorrow night, but we'll just be listening. I'm sure the board will take all concerns and needs into account, make the most prudent decision for all involved. The response from the applicant is, Brian, thank you for your heads up. We can address some of those concerns up front. 1, the processing being conducted on shore will be limited to counting and bagging oysters. There will be minimal smell because we will not be storing large amounts of fouled gear. And as you can tell, the cage systems create barnacle fouling. If you have 1,000 of them stacked up, they can start to smell on a hot sunny day. The floating farm system being used, once assembled, will stay permanently on the oyster lease. 2, we will be mooring 2 small boats at the property, each one being smaller than 30 feet. 3, we have no plans to install commercial floodlights. If we find that to be a necessity, we'll have them on a timer. Number 4, we plan on placing a 500 square foot storage garage on the property to house boats during a storm, an ice machine, and a refrigerator. We were clear in our notification to adjacent property owners that we will occasionally be operating small motors, a power washer during daylight hours, Monday through Friday. We were willing to work with the board in addressing any of these issues. And with that said, they did give a presentation to me today, and that's what you see here. I'll get you guys down if you want. And with that, I'm gonna ask to, since as I'm noted in the memo, Thomas and Callie had a previously scheduled out-of-town engagement, and they asked me if this request should still go forward or not, and what have you. So being that we're getting pretty good at the Zoom thing, they're going to try to zoom in. So if you guys can hear me, raise your hand. They do? Okay. What I'll do is I'll invite any questions from you guys that you have of me as staff, and then allow them to patch through and address you guys. And I think they're going to try to walk you through a couple, there's only 6 slides here, and walk you through that real quick and let you guys ask questions of them.
We're here. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, great. Well, thank you for, sorry we're not there in person. We've been planning this trip for a couple months. But in essence, we've been farming oysters for about 2 years in Moratico, and we were seeking out a location closer to the bay. It has higher salinity, a little bit better wave action, which helps, grow the oysters in a cleaner shape. The farming system we're putting in is called Flip Farm. It stays permanently out in the water, and it actually is a contraption that hooks on side of the boat, allows you to rotate the cages as you drive down them so they are air dry out on the water. So you do not need to bring them back to shore to power wash them. So we've been doing this for 2 years. We're conservationists. We believe that oysters play a vital role in the ecosystem as a keystone species. So our overarching goal is to try to make the bay cleaner and try to, sell some oysters doing it. The attractiveness of this property, the 605 Little Oyster Lane, is its proximity. It's about 3 miles from our oyster lease, which is located at the mouth of Mosquito Creek near Mosquito Island. The property was available, and it has good, clean, non-condemned water access and a dock. It has good well with good water, and it has electricity. And then that's enough space at the dock to be able to moor 2 boats and be able to store short-term oysters in the water that are about to go to market after harvesting.
So our planned use, pretty much, which we kind of already touched on, is boat storage and farm assembly. We have to put the Flip Farm together. They'll obviously be new and not smelly or fouled at that point. We are looking for a place to store our oysters and also be able to have an ice machine, a refrigerator, just a place that we can quickly dump off some oysters, get them chilled, get them ready to go. Nothing really more sophisticated than that. We won't be chucking or any sort of processing outside of bagging and tagging.
Just counting and bagging
Yeah.
and tagging. And most of that's going to be done out on the lease. We have a pontoon boat that's 24 foot long that we've turned into a processing, a mobile processing facility. It's very small, and we're able to just sort them and bag them right there out on the lease at mouth of Mosquito Creek. So by the time we get back to the dock, they're already bagged and tagged and ready to go to market. We're going to put in a small shed about 500 square feet so we can house our boat during a storm, put a refrigerator and ice machine.
I think that pretty much covers it.
That pretty much covers it, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a floating upweller, which is just, it's about 8 feet by 15 feet. We'd like to have that there for seed.
It's just like a floating dock. Nothing very sophisticated or eyesore-ish,
Right.
I suppose. And then our last slide is just taking into considerations, which Brian already read out. We're small, it's just the 2 of us. We're gonna limit traffic to our cars and our trailers as much as we can. We only have 2 boats. We're not a 50-person operation coming in here trying to take over with no point by any means. So, we welcome any comments or considerations, and we're more than willing to work with everyone?
Yeah, it's just,
Anyone?
it's just the two of us right now. We may hire a seasonal employees, 1 to 2, and then, as we scale, but, right now we're very small, and our plans are to just be able to land oysters and cool them down and get them to market, as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that about wraps it up.
All right, thank you. Board members, you finished, Ms. Bryan?
Yeah, that's it.
Board members, you have any questions before we open it up to public session, public input or questions? All right, at this particular time, we're opening up this to public comments. Any public comment? Okay.
Anybody?
Any online?
Oh, hold on, anybody online? All right, yes, sirs. Oh, Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Yes, Brian, I appreciate you reading my comments into the record, and I appreciate the update the folks gave online. I'm perfectly fine with what they're saying they're going to do. That I have no problem with that. I just know that once a special exemption is granted, if it's broad, it lasts in perpetuity for the next owner, or let's say they sell their business and somebody else wants to use that property for commercial reasons. I would just like to, if the board would, to bound what they're going to do to what their planned use is, so that 5, 10, 15 years from now, it's not significantly different than what we plan on today. That's all I have to say. And I appreciate your time. And I'm excited to have them on the creek here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, the public hearing is now closed on this. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
It's in my district, so I can make the motion. Working waterfront, I think, is important to all of our area. This is something that's enshrined in our comprehensive plan, but I do think we need to take into consideration of the neighbors' concerns, and I think we can, they're willing to accept the conditions that the neighbor mentioned regarding noise and lighting, smell and the traffic of the boats. So I move that we approve this special exceptions with the considerations adopted or recommended by the applicants, and that it only be for minimal oyster processing.
Okay, you've heard the motion. You're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
May I ask?
Yes, sir.
The considerations are as listed in their application.
Yes.
So we have a written document.
Yeah,
Okay,
as conditions.
As conditions.
as condition, okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's a unanimous vote, all right? The motion carries. Okay, next public hearing, Mr. Gill.
Mr. Chairman, at your December meeting, you instructed us to create a committee which consisted of our Information Technology Director, Glenn Rowe, our Registrar, Susan Jett, her Deputy Registrar, Kelsey Zentmeyer, myself, County Attorney Jim Cornwell, and the town managers and town attorneys for the towns of Kilmarnock, Irvington, and Whitestone to get together and come up with a proposed redistricting map for Lancaster County, which we're required to do every 10 years by the Code of Virginia. This committee met on January the 11th, and we came up with the map that you see in front of you as our recommendation. This map has been before you for over a month. It's been on our website for a month. It's also been reported in the Rappahannock Record on a couple or 3 different occasions. And the notice for this public hearing has been in the Rappahannock Record 2 successive weeks. Surprisingly, I have had no comments from the public on this proposed map. So what I'd like to do right now is just take you through the changes for the public benefit as well. The differences between districts 1 and 2, there are 3. You'll see this area here up off of Maradica Road, this area here around Leetown Road, and this area here west of Avis Trail. They are currently in District 1. They will be moving to District 2. That's needed to do to get the numbers to work out. And when I say that, the county is required to maintain 2 minority-majority districts, which are our Districts 2 and 4. And in addition to that, we have to keep this spread, this adjusted deviation across all districts within 10%. And so when, and that's all of this is based on decennial census numbers that are given to us by the federal government. So when we got those numbers this year, I think it was November when we got them, not usually September. Glenn and Kelsey put the numbers in and saw where we stacked up, and we noticed we had to change some census blocks. So to make all the numbers work. And what I will say is all of these columns down here, the public can't really see them because they're not that big, but all of these percentages of different voters across these districts are very similar to the current adopted map. So while we're making a few changes, overall, the percentages are very similar to the current adopted map. So I just went over the changes for districts 1 and 2. For districts 4 and 5, this area right here in the Currituman Circle area of Kilmarnock, that was in District 5. That will now be in District 4, which was done in an effort to reduce the number of districts that the town of Kilmarnock has. Currently, the town of Kilmarnock is split between Districts 3, 4, and 5, plus a Northumberland district. So currently, the town of Kilmarnock has 4 voting districts within their town limits. This plan reduces that number to 3. Kilmarnock will still have Districts 3 and 4 in Lancaster, and they will also have District 4 in Northumberland, because a small part of the town of Kilmarnock is within the county of Northumberland. So picking up on the changes, this area between Cox's Farm Road and Black Stump Road was in District 4. Now that will be in District 5. There's an area here, let me see where that's down Taylor's Creek Road off of, I can't remember the name of that road, but that's before you, right there on that sharp turn when you just get into Taylor's Creek Road. That was in, let me see.
Is that Loma Lost Road?
No, I can see myself now. That was in District 5, will be in District 4. This area right here is around the Glenwood subdivision. That was in District 5, that will now be in District 4. And that is, let me see, within the town limits of Kilmarnock. And you've got a big map in front of you, hard copy, so it might be easier to see, although I don't believe that map has the road names on it. Within the town of Kilmarnock, this area, and I can't read the names on that. Can you help me out, Kelsey, on that?
There's Cedar Lane and Patton Avenue.
Yeah, in between that was in District 3, that will now be in District 4, and how about this area right here? Magnolia Circle, okay. That area was in District 3, that'll now be in District 4. Again, the objective there was to reduce the number of precincts within the town limits of Kilmarnock, and still make the numbers work.
It's actually a census block that's between Baywalk Drive and Magnolia Circle.
Right,
Yeah.
right there. And you all can see where I'm circling, it's kind of hard to see, but that's where it is. And it's important to note that, as I said, Kilmarnock will remain split, but we tried moving census blocks all around, and we could not get the town of Kilmarnock wholly within one district and make all the other numbers work. So this is the best we could do, and it reduces the number of precincts within the town of Kilmarnock. Now, Kilmarnock is still allowed to be split under state code if they pass an ordinance describing the precincts within their town limits. And that's one of the reasons why the public hearing is being held tonight in February, hopefully adopted tonight, so that the town of Kilmarnock can go through their process to adopt their ordinance based on the language that we've crafted from this map. And all of those steps have to be done prior to April 1st, so that our registrar's office can do everything that they need to do to meet their deadlines for upcoming elections, which the first one is a primary in June, correct? You don't think so, but that would be the first one if you, if it were to happen, yeah, so, okay. And the only other change on this map is between District 5 and District 3, which is right here. This area was in District 5, and it will now be in District 3. This is the river landing area down close to the Whitestone Bridge. So we've got all of the town of Irvington within District 5. We've got all of the town of Whitestone within District 3. So as I said, we tried moving around to, moving the census blocks around to get Kilmarnock wholly within one district, just, we couldn't make the numbers work. So this is the committee's recommendation. This is what has been noticed for public hearing. So I would ask that the board adopt this map tonight.
All right, you've heard the presentations. Does any member have any questions or comments before I open it up for public hearing? All right, no questions from the board? This is now open up to the public for public hearing. Yes, sir. Come forward. State your name, district.
Board of Supervisors, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Coy. I'm a resident of Kilmarnock, and I didn't realize we had 4 districts in town. I'm District 3. I'm in whatever part is District 3. I've been in the area since 1988, and back in those days, we had 3 districts, and we had 3 supervisors. I am so glad that all the work that these folks have put in, and apparently it's been a lot of trying to figure out how to make this thing work, that they have preserved the 2 minority-majority districts. I'm very glad to see that. I think it's helped with our representation in the area, that we see, even in our supervisors, as we look tonight, a better snapshot of what our community looks like. And I think that's a very good thing to keep. So I commend the work that these people have done to maintain the 2 minority-majority districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Corey.
And I encourage you to say yes.
Any other comments? Anybody comment from the public? Online?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I would note that if the board approves the map, redistricting map, we will then set about doing a written description of each one of these parcels for the ordinance that we would have to amend. And as Don indicated, Kilmarnock will sit down and do a written description of its boundary lines for the 2 districts that Kilmarnock would be in.
That's after after it's passed.
If I can add to this, Glenn has already created the language, and what is in there for public hearing number 3 includes the descriptions as they are for this map.
Okay, all right.
So,
First of all, let me close the floor to the public hearing here. All right, okay, thank you very much. All right. I move that we adopt the proposed 2021 redistricting map as presented. You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. 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 That's a unanimous vote there. Okay, the motion, the proposed has been passed. Or the motion has been passed. All right. What's the next one?
all right, Mr. Chairman, the next public hearing follows the map. As Mr. Cornwell just stated, we have to have a written ordinance describing the voting precincts according to this map. And we took the liberty of anticipating that you would adopt this map as it was. And Glenn he figured out all of the language for describing these districts as they currently are. So the language you have in your proposed ordinance section 22-2 pertains to this map which you just adopted. The main reason for this public hearing tonight on section 22-2 was to formally adopt the change of the polling place for District 3, Precinct 301, from the Whitestone Baptist Church to the Whitestone Volunteer Fire Department. So we just took the liberty of trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. So So the ordinance before you contains both the change of the polling place and has the descriptions as they pertain to this map. And I will tell you that I have also gone through these districts and pulled out the language and given to Susan Cockrell in the town of Kilmarnock to help them along with their ordinance, giving them what they need to describe the Districts 3 and 4 within the town limits of Kilmarnock. Of course, she's got to get District 4 from Northumberland, but try to help them speed their process up so they can get their ordinance passed before April 1st.
Okay. Gentlemen, you've seen this information, it's in our packets. You have any questions? Mr. Gill first.
Just that it's very impressive, Glenn.
It is, very much so. Yeah, all right. Now we have the meetings open up to a public hearing. Any comments online?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, no comments. Floor is closed. All right. I move that we adopt the proposed amendments to section 22-2 as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Shouldn't you say in changing of the polling places?
Yes, that was part of the presentation, but I can make it there. And change the voting district in Kilmarnock.
Well,
And what is it?
Yeah, the Whitestone District 3 polling location.
State that again.
The Whitestone District 3 polling location.
All right, add that to my motion. All right, okay. All those in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. All right, motion's carried.
I will note that the committee was successful in not moving any of the members of the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you for that.
One of the priorities of the
Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. Next one is Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This public hearing is for the consideration of a special exception by James and Elsa Langford, care of Community Power Group, to construct a utility-scale solar facility pursuant to Article 28 of the Lancaster County zoning ordinance for a proposed 3-megawatt solar facility located on tax map number 16-39, located off Route 3 in District 2. As you all are aware from reading the memo, this project first went to the Planning Commission on September 16th, 2021 for a 2232 review. The Planning Commission found unanimously in favor of this project for substantial conformance with the comprehensive plan. Following that, this project comes to you for the special exception request. And you have the memo before you and the project before you. I have received 2 public comments from Susan Marsh and Ronnie Forrester expressing concerns. I think Mr. Forrester is here tonight. Mrs. Marsh said she could not be here. I have not heard from any of the adjacent property owners directly on this. They did, as you saw in the minutes from the Planning Commission proceedings, they did appear at the meeting, several adjacent property owners, and they did not reply to my second mailing. There was a question earlier today about the certificate of liability insurance that you find in the application. I do have a new certificate for you that is valid until 2023.
Okay, good.
There was another concern regarding the planting buffer and some of the conditions there. Mr. Pam, you already have this.
Yes. Mhm.
And I will invite questions from you guys. Community Power Group's representative is here. I can answer your questions if you have of me from a staff standpoint before Rachel Boots with Community Power Group comes to address you prior to your hearing.
Okay, any questions, gents? All right, no questions? All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name, again, is Rachel Boots, and I am a licensed civil engineer with Community Power Group. And I'm here tonight to speak in support of the 3-megawatt solar project at James and Elsa Langford's property located in District 2. Having attended the special planning session between the Planning Board and Board of Supervisors that you guys had in January, and having follow-up conversations with staff and board members, I'm happy to be standing here to present this project, which we think is a perfect example of sustainable solar development in Lancaster. So of the 102 acres on the property, a majority is heavily wooded, and the solar development would be going in an area that's already cleared. Also, the project will be set back more than 250 feet from Maryball Road. I visited with the neighbors across the road at the inn at Levelfield. They're the ones who attended the planning commission. I went to their second floor of their beautiful historic estate and spoke with them how their view would be protected with the installation of a vegetative buffer and how the site is southwardly sloping. So even from an elevated view on the second floor of that manor with the tall proposed vegetative buffer, you shouldn't be able to see any solar panels would be our design intent and promise. Also, this large setback protects potential growth along the Maryball corridor. The 250 feet setback that's per the code would allow, like if you had half-acre lots along the road, you could have a 150-foot wide lot and then another 100-foot buffer before you hit the solar. So that 100-foot buffer is what's the residential setback. So in the event that you wanted to place homes in the future along Maryball, this wouldn't be prohibited by the use of the solar at this location. Also, we will be screening the site with a vegetated buffer, and the closest existing residential building is more than 400 linear feet away from any solar panels. I know that land preservation is very important to many of the citizens at Lancaster County, and I just wanted to touch quickly on how solar is a sustainable land preservation technique, because after our useful life of generating electricity, it is returned to the existing state. Installing a solar facility does not require major changes to grade at the site, especially this site, given that it's very, very flat. There's no sites or no slopes exceeding 15%, which I know is an erosion and sediment controls concern. This site, most of it's under or at 4% slope. Also, when we install with piles that are driven into the ground with no concrete foundations. We have gotten a geotechnical report for the site already to be able to design those in the depth that they would need to be at. So they can be easily removed. All of this is outlined in our decommissioning plan, which was submitted as part of our application, and it's up to par with industry standards. This highlights the assurance that the site can and will be restored to a state similar to the pre-construction condition at the end of our project term. Overall, we understand that the conversion of farmland to solar is a very tough choice, and we appreciate your consideration for this project. It is important to remember that not all farmland is a good spot for solar, because some farmers have profitable land where they want to continue their farming operations. Some farmers are not close to wires that have capacity. This site is close to a wire that has capacity. And some farms have environmentally sensitive features on them. This farm does not. There are intermittent streams at the very property boundary, more than 400 feet away from any solar facilities. So this is an example of land where the owners wish to convert the use to solar. There are favorable characteristics, and we hope that the council will see these advantages and honor the wishes of the owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, before she leaves, do you have any questions of her? All right, okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I open up the floor to public comment. Anyone wants to speak? Now's your chance. Yes, sir. Come right on. Remember your 3-minute time limit.
One day it'll change. God willing. On the application, we have the minutes of the thing from the Planning Commission, and I noted on, I thought it was page, I haven't got it. It's where Tom Richardson is speaking about the decommissioning and having it done, and here it is. It's on page 6. And Tom asked about the decommissioning,
Asked Mr. Barnes if a third-party engineer would be reviewing the decommissioning plans to make sure they are adequate. Mr. Barnes replied that it was not the immediate plans, stated that the ordinance states about the bond. Mr. Richardson stated that he would like to see the county hire a third-party firm, review everything, and those costs associated with the review should be paid by the developer. I think this is a good idea, not just for this one, but for all of the projects that are coming along and so on, to be sure. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how many of you are engineers. I think we need other third parties to review it, and it'd be good to have it as a condition of your special exception. Thank you very much. Do I turn my time back?
You sure did. Thank you, Mr. Costello. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay.
Ronnie Forrest, I've been here for a lot, the last 2 years. I just hate to see farmland taken for solar. I mean, I know it's happening, but somewhere it's gotta be stopped. We are getting ready to get into, you can look at the grocery stores now, and you see it's not as much food on there as it used to be. In the next 20 to 30 years, it's gonna get worse. The food chain is gonna come back to the East Coast. The West Coast is dry, and they're doing a lot of studying on it now. They said that it's very important that the food chain comes back to the East Coast. And that's why I say I hate to see more farmland taken in this county and other counties. The state is fighting it in some ways. They're finding out that it's too much farmland being taken right now. But I mean, it's hard to tell Paul he can do it and Peter he can't when we already has opened up a can of worms. But it's just something that the board really needs to think about and limit this, because, if we get to 4% of our county being in solar, that's a lot. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Anyone online?
No service, Chairman.
Okay, all right. All right, public hearing is closed.
Brian, I have a couple of questions. Our ordinance, doesn't it require a buffer of four plantings?
It does, yes, sir.
The other concern or question I have is regarding the setbacks. In the highway overlay district, the setback is 150 feet from the center of the road. So that basically creates a 300-foot section corridor along the highway corridor overlays. It is my feeling that the setbacks start at that point and move back. So the highway for the solar setback of 250 feet would begin at the 150-foot point, making the setback a total of about 400 feet from the road, from the center of the road. I think that is best in keeping with the ordinance and the protection of the highway corridor, and preventing the kind of growth that occurred in, say, Middlesex and Gloucester, where they built these facilities practically right up to major highway corridors. Without that provision, I'd be unwilling to support this project.
Okay, with the planting that I'm proposing the right word is not proffer. Condition for this project is called the Tiger Green Giant Arborvitae. And from talking to the nurseries and so on, that's a fast-growing tree, and it spreads about, in maturity, about 30 to 50 feet tall, and it spreads about 15 feet wide. All right, so what I'm proposing is, with those trees, and I think you've seen some of those along the highways and so on, and they grow fast in this area, from what I'm told from the nursery. In this area, it grows about 2 feet a year tall. All right, so what I'm proposing is 2 rows of these, and they are alternated. So about 6 to 10 feet apart, like I say, in 2 rows. And you have a picture of this. And as they're alternated, you have one setting in the middle of the other 2. So as they begin to grow and spread out, they should do a good job of camouflaging the projects, all right? The solar panels, all right? So this is my thinking for this particular project. Now, on another project, maybe something different. And on this project also, you also have from the road frontage a natural buffer of trees already growing that would protect this project from view from the roadside, from Route 3. So this is where I am coming from this, and I'm thinking, and also I would like to see these planted right in the beginning before the project is started, so they have extra time of growing. So by the time the project is completed, it should be to the place where it is camouflaging at least 90% of it, if not all of it. So, and we've had some conferences with the owners of this project, and they have agreed to this. And I'm thinking it's a pretty good project, pretty good buffer for this particular project. And let's see, what else I was getting ready to say here. All right, anyway, I'm satisfied with what I see the conditions being met with these buffers that I'm planning on presenting to as a condition to this project. Any questions, comments?
No, I have another question for Brian. Basically, the staff time or the time needed to, in the future, to basically keep track of all these requirements, buffers, setbacks, and make sure in there being adhered to, and what kind of enforcement we have. We have an enforcement problem now with landowners trashing their properties, and the court's not really giving us much hand in fixing those issues. So I don't see in the future that we run into problems trying to enforce these, that we would not run into a similar problem in the courts not really backing us up, and a massive amount of time for our staff to go around weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever it is, to survey these and make sure that they're being kept up to standards. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the enforcement of any ordinance is always a concern, and is always a huge challenge, and I think you're right to have concern for that. I think anytime you establish a new ordinance of any kind, you need to think about the long-term effects and the enforcement capability. The reliance on the court system, you are correct, from a staff perspective, especially in the last 18 months, 20 months, has been problematic, to say the least, not just with us, but also with the criminal law enforcement side down the hill. They're in the same problem. That said, I think the one thing that you can feel a little more confident on with the special exception process is the ability to revoke special exceptions. This board has done that within the last 12 months with a special exception, where if the conditions you impose and the other ordinance-related parameters of that project are not met, you can undertake a process to revoke that special exception. I think that is almost easier to do at this point, the way the world is right now, than to begin a civil court process with the circuit court. That said, if the revocation does not go well, then you might end up in civil court anyway. But I think your concerns about enforcement are valid, not just with enforcement, but just with day-to-day and maintenance and handling the flow in the face of, as y'all are well aware, in the last 18 months, none of us have had even a minute to sit down. We're busy with building permits and other things as well. So I appreciate your concern on that. I think it's valid. Perhaps not a showstopper, but certainly something to be concerned about.
Additional to that, my concern here is that we've talked about limiting these in ways and talking about the language in our comp plan. If we're gonna make decisions on things, we have to have solid things that we can make decisions on, and setbacks and proper setbacks, especially along the highway corridor. If we can put those into writing and adhere to those essentially every time, that is a way that we can limit the growth of these in certain areas and overall limit the growth of them to some degree, and have sounding on the decisions we make, because they're backed up with our comp plan, they're backed up with the ordinance, and they adhere to the the protection of that highway corridor, which is enshrined in the comprehensive plan. So I think it's important that we have large setbacks along that corridor. My intention was, when we developed this, it was my pushing for that language to protect the highway corridor, and it was my feeling that the 250 setback would begin at the 150 foot, making it at least a 400-foot setback from the center of the road, based on what is already in place on the highway corridor overlay ordinances versus what's in the ordinance for the current solar ordinance. And it's not so much just this project. Yes, this buffer may be suited for this project, and that may be great, but once you crack the door any closer to the highway corridor than that, then you open up the door for many more along the corridor that could take place in the future, and we'd have no real grounds to basically eliminate one of those or deny that sort of development. We've already approved one closer to it. So I think it's important that we maintain that highway overlay corridor protection to the greatest extent possible, and I think the 250 plus the 150 that's already there does that with the buffer in place as well. That concludes my comments.
Yeah.
I was thinking, we've already approved one, with the 150-foot setback. Am I?
250 feet.
250.
Yeah.
We already approved one with that, so that part we've already done. I'm definitely, think that we need to change it the way that, Jason is talking. I'm just concerned about this project tonight, that we'll pass the midway point on it, to make that stipulation tonight that it's gonna be 400 and some feet back, when we have already did one. If we write that language in the coming weeks or whatever for whatever's going forth, then I can see that. But right now, I don't know whether tonight is the time that we need to make that change when we considering this application, because we've already did one. And if we had made it a couple weeks of, right after that, then I think I would feel better about it. But it's something bothering me about making that change tonight while we considering this application.
Right. And with the one that we've already approved, I negotiated with the landowner to put these same type of trees on that section of Route 3. And that's why I didn't have a real problem in doing the same thing with this particular section on Route 3. Because if they plant it right, kept up, they will camouflage what's behind it. And let me say this too. In talking with the nursery, they were saying that in this area, we really need to go ahead and plant them and put them in the ground in March. We said anytime after March, because we usually have some dry summers for these trees. Anytime after March, we're gonna have to do some watering. If you're not gonna do any watering, then you need to wait until the fall to plant them so they can get water after that. So we're looking at March if possible. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Helen, I have a question. So I wasn't part of the board when we decided on that, so, and I'm learning a lot about solar panels. But I do have a question about decommissioning of the panels, and I'm not sure I was clear on what you were saying. So are we saying that the responsibility of decommissioning is not necessarily the responsibility of the developer?
No, it isn't.
It is.
The thing of the plan is a review.
All right.
What Mr. Richardson was getting at is to review the plan of decommissioning, to be sure it is what should be for us, and so on. From an engineering standpoint, takes an engineer to review it, other than the developer. Make it a third party, and the developer has to pay the cost for that to do it and all. And that is the thing. The other thing I had, I'll step back on that one, the 250. Are we talking about the Waller Solar? Is that what you're talking about, the other one that was approved?
Yes.
And it has that small piece up on Route 3 and all? It's not in any way comparison to the size of this project and the visibility that it will have, I would do it for this one, and so on. I think you've got to start now, or you're gonna have trouble each one as you come down the way. I really am concerned about that. And Waller is so small, I wouldn't even see that. One other thing, it should be for all state roads. And we're forgetting about Route 201. We keep talking about 200, 354, and 3. Don't forget 201, which goes out to Eastville and all. That's a state road, should be included in this consideration of setbacks.
Jason, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would the proposed 400-foot setback be where the panels are located or where the buffering is first located?
The fence,
In other words, the beginning of the project?
yes,
So trees would come after that?
yes. Essentially, what I'm feeling, like, I consider
Trees
the,
are outside the fence.
yeah, it would be from the center of the road, 150 foot out, and then the 250 point would start at that 150-foot part from the road and extend out. That's what I intended when I put this language.
The buffering would not be in the 250?
No, the buffering would be, it would go back to the fence, and the buffering could be within the 200, could be within that
I
setback.
don't know what the board wants to do, I was just wondering.
I would also concur that the Waller project was much different. That was done on a siting plan agreement, and so that was a very different type of project than these small scales. And if we open the door to this and allow the highway corridor to be breached in this way, there's going to be no undoing it after we approve this project, because
Every piece of land is different.
we've kind of set the precedent at that point.
Yes, ma'am.
We would be agreeable to a 400-foot setback.
Okay.
One
If-
side of the project is already, like you see there's a bunch of trees that are staying.
Right.
The left side is already 400 feet back.
Right.
So we can just pull that right side back to match.
If you're amenable to that, then I will vote to approve. I'll vote with them with
So
including the
it
buffer.
just goes straight across.
Yeah, it is, I scaled it earlier, it is 400 feet from the edge of the VDOT right away here to that fence.
And he's talking about the center line, so it's actually, the 150 is from the center line?
Yeah, roughly, by I figured out when I was talking to Brian earlier, it would be from the center of the road. So you're looking basically 140 foot out from the road, because you're basically about a 20-foot road. So
Right.
roughly, that would take about 10 feet away from that 150 foot. So you're looking at about 390 feet.
Yeah, that would be fine.
But if you're amenable to the 400 foot, and they put that in the motion, I'll vote for it.
Yeah, the 150 plus the 250 is agreeable. But Mr. Palin, I did want to point out something about the draft motion. Brian, I think when we spoke before, we had requested that the green giant arborvitae be along the Mary Ball Road. Those do grow very fast, and that is the north side of the project, so it doesn't produce as much shade. But the border right here, we're requesting that would be the original buffer that's in the code, because those can have smaller trees. This is a one-story house, so they won't be able to see above it anyway. So like, the Mary Ball Road border would be the green giant arborvitae, but then this
What about considering natural border there?
western, this
I
is
don't
only 400
Yeah.
feet.
I
And I
think
know
back
that
and forth will work
1,000
right now.
But they do have a big field here that's already pretty grown up. When you're standing here, you can just like see the roof, but it is a one-story house. I don't know if they would.
It's just, I mean,
Let it
pretty
grow up.
much around here, like if you let the natural pine forest that grows, that will grow and be maintained without any sort of management at all versus basically nursery plants. Those are arboretums, they're gonna be great, but in 20 years, you're gonna have to replace them for sure because they die. Leland cypress, all those type of trees in this environment do not last more than 20 or 25 years because of the environment we have here. That's a northern type of tree really, and so, the more natural buffers we can use, like we had this issue with the Dominion substation down there in Akron. We talked about buffers, but by the time they got it done and got back to us, the natural trees had grown up to a point where now it's so thick, you couldn't even see light through it. And so the more we can use natural buffers, it's gonna put less stress on our staff to kind of manage these nurseries everywhere over the county essentially. And it's also gonna be more natural to grow and survive in our climate here. And it's also cheaper for the developer to put in and to
Yeah, we
to
don't-
do.
Mr.
don't-
Barnes, correct me, because as we drove that site, that particular section is basically wide open. All right, so it's gonna take some years for natural growing to take place there, to cover anything. It's basically wide open.
It's probably
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
four,
So that's
3
gonna be
feet
some
of
years.
tall grass right
If you
now.
let it go, it would probably grow faster and cover the panels quicker than it would if you planted small shrubs and allowed those to grow. which
But
would
I'm
take
thinking
a
about,
decade.
those people gonna look at that for 5 to 8 years.
That's up to you
But-
guys to deliberate. You know, your applicant is offering to plant the 4-row ordinance buffer on that
okay,
side,
that's
which is
what
a
I wanna
guaranteed go. And I don't
Yeah.
disagree, the natural buffer, and I was, as y'all know, I
That's
helped
what I wanna
develop that.
see.
But
Because I gotta think about the people that I'm representing there.
I think, when we designed the natural buffer, and when we thought of that, we were, and the ordinance even intends for that to be used in areas where a residential home is almost 1,000 feet away.
Right.
With one right across that little
Right.
field. I think that may not be as appropriate, but that's, as Mr. Cornwell just eloquently stated, I do not tell you guys what to do. I can only
Mr. Bale,
advise.
that's in your district and it's your neighbors, so you have to make the call
Yeah,
on what's appropriate
Yeah,
there.
I can go with what she has recommended here. Drop the Leland site, not Leland, but, the green, the green giant on that side, but go
Yeah.
with the 4-row buffer, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, because I have to think about the people I represent there. All right.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to what Mr. Bellows addressed about staff time related to enforcement of conditions related to the special exception. As you all know, I gave you a code section earlier today. It's kind of last minute. I apologize for that. It seems like everything with solar is kind of last minute. But section 15.2-2288.8 allows the Board of Supervisors to place a condition for a cash payment involved with these smaller projects. You know that the smaller projects are exempt from the requirement of a siting agreement, but you can place a condition on a cash payment, and a reasonable cash payment, in our opinion, would be the revenue that you would receive from our adopted revenue sharing ordinance of $1,400 per megawatt per year. And you know that that has an escalator built in of an additional 10% every 5 years. So I've given, if the board wishes to follow that route, I've given you the language, Mr. Chairman, as a condition. Mr. Cornwell has reviewed it, and so that's, if you want to go down that road, that would be some extra revenue that maybe could help offset some of the staff time
And we
that
do
Mr. Bellows was
understand that
talking
the
about.
applicant is agreeable to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
and the applicant has told me that they are agreeable to that.
Okay, all right,
That should be part of it.
okay, all right, okay.
I've got a comment.
Yes, sir.
You all probably know what I'm getting ready to say, but I've shared some information over the past month that Mr. Costello shared with me about solar and about the use of mainly our farmland and our timberland. And as you know, we've got limited amounts of both in this county. I dare to say we're probably, with the Waller project and everything, I dare to say we've probably taken 400 acres of farmland out of production. And when you put that over the 16,000 that's projected of our total farmland, we're up to about 3%. That scares me a little bit, being a farmer and being a native here. And I really think we need to consider slowing this down and looking at it. We're getting a lot of these projects. As some of you may know, there's even a bill that's been put in the General Assembly. I know it's passed the House. I don't know where it is now at this point, where it would be required of the developer to study the impact on natural resources, timber, farmland. And I really think, as a board, a lot of our community, more than we actually hear at these meetings, are concerned about that. So in that light, I would not be able to support this. mainly because I just think these projects need to go on other properties other than productive farmland or, or timberland. Thank you.
All right. And I respect your statement, but I had two comments to that. Number one, I look at each individual has a right to use their property as they deem necessary. Number two, until 2008, a lot of our farmland was being turned into homes, being developed, and that does not come back to the farmland. With this, within 30 to 40 years, it can be returned back to the farmland. So that's basically where I'm standing with it. It took me some time to get here, but that's where I stand with that. So.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I respect the ability of any landowner to do with what they want with their land, as long as it doesn't hurt the neighbor. And solar panels, I agree, do not hurt that. So I'm with you on that, and there are going to be people who want to do this with their land, and I respect that. But I think as a county, we ought to, we're deemed with setting what we want to see in the county as far as that. If we want to ride the highways and see solar panel after solar panel, then I guess that's what it is. But if we want to see farmland in production, that's a whole different thing. And I think that responsibility falls on us as a board, not the landowners per se. That's just my opinion, so thank you for your time.
And Mr. Palin, my voice won't matter tonight either in the vote, but I can't support it for this reason. And it feels like I'm on an interstate and I don't know what the speed limit is, because we don't really have any rules, and it's hard to grasp those because, as Don just said, this whole solar thing is moving so fast. Years ago, I took the kids out to Palm Springs, and driving to Los Angeles, I saw miles and miles of wind vanes.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them were broken off and not working and laying all over the place. And I just don't want it to look like what our borders look like now. We have millions and millions and billions of dollars worth of material in storage because one administration wanted to build it and the next one didn't want to build it. Will solar panels be something very similar in the future? Is it a thing now, but in the future it may not be? So I guess until we can get a grasp, until I feel comfortable with having something more consistent with each building site, I won't vote in favor of it tonight.
All right, we have ordinances that are addressing a lot of the things that we have been talking about, because we have developed those when we've dealt with the first solar plan or solar site. So we do have some things that are in place, but as anything else, you continue to improve upon them. So.
I still think we need to work on our comp plan language too, and after hearing y'all's comments too, I'm still concerned about the expansion of these projects. And so I don't know how I'm going to vote at this point.
Yeah. Well, I believe we all are concerned
It's a
about
hard
that.
issue. I fully address it's a hard issue, but, and I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Palin. I respect that, but I also think it's our job to set where we want the county to go. I think that's why we're here. And I just don't want to ride down the road in the future. I've lived there all my life. I don't want to ride down the road and see solar panel after solar panel after solar panel. I think we need to somehow come up with a workable way around this. So, just my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm the rookie on here, so.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
You know, the thing is, we've been wrestling with this for 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
We didn't start last year.
No.
No, I understand.
Yeah, we've been wrestling with this for 4 or 5 years, making changes here and there and doing all sorts of things, and we came up with an ordinance that I still feel that's a good ordinance.
Yep.
I think we did a real good job on the staff did a good job on the research. They looked at a lot of counties, and one of the things I think is gonna happen in each case, you're not gonna produce a step-by-step plan to fit every one of these things. You're not, And when listen to Mr. Smith, I think he's looking for something that he can say, okay, this is the way it's gonna be, and that's it. But that's not gonna happen, not with what I've seen coming through the planning commission and the statements, you know, with all the land, different situations, that's not gonna happen. I agree, I don't wanna see one every 5 or 10 miles either. I agree with that, but I think we have to consider what we have, with applications we have, and we have to make corrections, we have to adjust to it, you know, going as we go along, and that's what we have done. We got a project here before us tonight. If you know, if you want to vote against it, that's fine. If you want to vote for it, that's fine, and you got your reasons for doing it. But you're not going to be able to pick up a book. This is my opinion. Pick up a book and say, yeah, this is going to happen, because it's too many differences. There's just too many differences on every project, every piece of land. It's just different things. Now, if we just blanket say we don't want solar in Lancaster, then we need to make that decision and say, hey, we just not gonna allow solar in Lancaster, and vote on it and let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're just not gonna be able to pick up a book and say, yeah, you know, okay, this meets this, this meets that. It's just too many differences.
Well, I'm not saying to blanket do away with solar. I'm saying don't trade off our valuable natural resources for the solar. There are a lot of places that it could be done that would not affect our valuable natural resources, but the costs go up and it's not as easy. I mean, I look at the Dominion project up here. They were able to contact two landowners and get the bulk of the land they needed. So somebody asked me, why is it there? That was easy. It's easy, and that's where the developers want to go. The farmland is easy. And I mean, I'm not questioning the ordinances. I think, you know, there's some things that have to be tweaked, but there's nothing wrong with our ordinance. It's just, where do we want to go with the county? That's what I'm questioning as far as that. So, and, you know, I wasn't on here before. I should have been there earlier in those 5 years listening. I wasn't, I can tell you that. But I just think, I mean, if we're not sure, then let's slow down. We don't have to stop it, but let's slow down and look at it if we're not sure. And I don't know. I just think none of us are 100%. You probably never will get 100%, but we can maybe get a little bit better than we are now. That's my thought. So.
Well, that's what we've been hearing for 5 years. Let's slow down and look at it. We have been slowing down and look at it. Matter of fact, we just made a first action on one after about 5 years. And I'll go back to this. Before 2008, they were developing land in Lancaster County, I mean, hand over fist. We had to have our meetings in the cafeteria at the school to hold everybody that was there. And the waterfront, all that available land basically got developed. Then they start moving inland. A lot of inland has already been sold to development, and plans have been already approved for houses to be built on those. 2008 stopped the building. So a lot of the people we call about farmlands and forest land, if the economy pick back up, it's not gonna be forest farmland, it's gonna be homes. And then when a home gets there, it's there for permanent, it's permanent.
I was farming a lot of that land in those times, and I lost a lot of land to it, and I understand. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but this board didn't make those decisions. That was a prior board, so we can't change that, unfortunately, but right now, I think we can deal with this. It's just my thought as far as that. We mainly got to think about what's on our plate right now. We can't change what happened back in those days. Because I hated that at that point, but it wasn't anything I could do. I was a young kid, and I wasn't thinking about being on the board of supervisors.
But I hate to punish this applicant because of these things now we're starting to bring back up. All right, so this is something that we can talk about later. If we want to really, like Mr. Lee said, if we want to say no more, then we need to sit down, say no more coming, and then make that decision, no more, and then let it all be known. But I don't think we should be doing that tonight. So.
Because it's too far along, or we owe that responsibility to the developer and the landowner? I mean, why do we have to do it tonight?
We've been talking about, how long we been dealing with this one? for a year or two.
For this one, okay.
But about a year. So public hearing is closed, please. Public hearing is closed, sir,
How come she gets to go up and talk about it?
because she is part of the process.
I'm part of the process. I'm
You-
a farmer.
I know, and we had public hearing for you as the farmer and the citizens to speak.
But I want to bring up one more point.
She's the
A lot of this
Yeah,
land
this is the
sold to
this is the applicant that we're dealing with. That's why she can come up and talk. She's the applicant.
That's what this board needs to realize. We need to have, after.
Go ahead and speak. I'm gonna give you a chance. Go ahead and speak.
I'm not.
But don't expect this all the time.
I respect
All right.
all of the board.
Go ahead.
And I'm like Mr. Geezy. I think we're moving too fast, and the Waller project was sold to a Canadian-based company. Like, do we want Canadian people owning our land around us? No. Around my farm, it's gonna be all Canadian-based land. I mean, I'm gonna be backed up to the people Canadians who own the land. I'm not against, the solar, but I'm against a lot of putting it on farmland and moving too fast in this county. We moved too fast with the open roads project, and when Craig came down here and told everybody what they were gonna do, they're not gonna do all that because it's sold to a Canadian company. I already have problems with it, and I'm just, I think this board really needs to slow down and rethink a lot of this stuff, or we're gonna have a big mess in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Any other comments, fellas? All right. At this point in time, then, we've already talked, we've expressed our issues and our views and made our comments, so I'm gonna make this motion. I move that we approve this project with the following conditions. Condition number one, that the required vegetation buffer along this project for a length of 500 linear feet and 344 linear feet, and we had 560, but one of those we're gonna strike. Which one is it?
Yeah, you're gonna strike, if you're gonna strike this north end, Mr. Pamela, you're gonna strike 560 feet.
Okay,
From your arbor vitae, and you're gonna turn that, you're gonna use your ordinance buffer.
okay, ordinance buffer.
So your 560 feet will not be, include your green giant.
Okay, all right. So condition one, start over again, that the required vegetation buffer along this project for the length of 96 linear feet, 344 linear feet, respectively, be submitted with a buffer or arborvitae variety Tyger green giant, made up of species 6 feet tall and at planting, 8 feet apart within the row and on a 6-foot row spacing. And also, we're gonna use the ordinance buffer for the 560 feet. The planting within the row shall be staggered as depicted in the attached sketch, and that's on this section of paper that we each one have that would be with the minutes. Condition number two, the aforementioned planting be planted prior to the commencement of construction in order that they provide maximum buffering effect and minimize public sightline impacts. Planting will be required to be inspected and approved by county staff in order to obtain final county building and land use permits for project commencement. Condition number three, in accordance with the Code of Virginia, Section 15.2-22.8, the county will require, and the applicant has agreed, to pay an annual cash payment of $1,400 per megawatt plus a 10% escalator every 5 years, which is the same revenue the county would receive under its revenue sharing ordinance for larger solar projects for or construction of substantial public improvements. The need for which is not generated solely by the granting of the special exception, but which conditions is reasonably related to the project. All right. Y'all heard the motion and the conditions. Any questions? Yes, sir.
We need the condition of, that she's agreeing to use a 400-foot setback.
Oh, yeah. And also that the condition number four, All right, we will use a 400-foot setback.
Is that from the center line of Route 3?
Is that from the center line?
Center line of Route 3.
Yeah, 400-foot setback from the center line. Okay, any questions? Any question? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, all right. Sorry, ma'am. Motion lost. Okay, this was good. This was a good one. All right, this was a good one.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the consensus docket.
All right. All in favor of the consensus docket, say approval, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous vote, consistent docket's approved, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the expenses and total invoices for $552,925.32. Total payroll, $343,027.34, for a total of $895,952.66. Of which capital improvements were $14,465, and ARPA related $149.66.
All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Motion passed. All right, next one here is we have consideration for reimbursements, all right?
Mr. Chairman, this is a consideration of a reimbursement resolution for certain expenditures made in connection with school and/or county capital improvement projects from future proceeds of one or more tax-exempt financings. Basically, what this does, it permits the county to reimburse the county's general fund with monies from these later tax-exempt financings for school and county capital improvement projects. It doesn't require you to borrow for those projects, but it gives you the ability to reimburse yourself if you do.
It doesn't require you to do the projects. It
Exactly.
simply says if we do them and if we borrow money, we can pay ourselves back for what we've always spent.
And there are time limits on how quickly this reimbursement resolution needs to be adopted. It needs to be adopted to cover any expenditures from the date 60 days prior to the adoption of this resolution, and for a period of 3 years from the adoption date, or 18 months from the date the improvements are placed in service, in which you can reimburse yourself for. As you know, you have bond counsel, Sands Anderson, and the attorney we typically deal with is Dan Siegel, and he has prepared this reimbursement resolution for your consideration. Typically, the board adopts these early on in the capital improvement budget process, so that it gives you the greatest flexibility for the borrowing. And, we capped it at $1,150,000 because that's all that we can realistically see right now. As the board approves school projects moving forward, we can go back and adopt a subsequent reimbursement resolution to allow for any increased amounts that we have. As you know, we closed on the Carter property February 1st, so that was not quite 30 days ago. So I'm asking you to adopt this resolution tonight to be able to reimburse the general fund from any future tax-exempt financings.
Any questions, comments? All right, I move that we adopt the attached reimbursement resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, unanimous vote. Okay, board reports. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Y'all that razzle dazzle me. All right.
It's getting late.
Yeah. All right. I move that for the wetland board, I'll appoint Hannah Long for the wetlands board. All right, you've heard the appointment. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, that's a unanimous vote there. All right, Hannah has been appointed. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah.
I'm excited to bring Glenn Tigner to he's in District 5. Glenn's willing to serve on the Building Code Appeals Board, and it's a 4-year term.
Okay, that's your nomination?
That is my nomination.
All right, you heard the nomination. All in favor say aye. Aye. That's a unanimous vote. Mr. Tigner is now part of the Building Codes Appeal Board. All right. Any other thing? Yes, sir.
I just have a couple of comments. I want us to, I'm I would still consider this project, but I'm not ready to vote, I wasn't ready to vote for it tonight based on the things that we talked about with the ordinance and the clarifying of this setback along the highway corridor and working on that final language in our comp plans. I really want to see those things expedited and try to see what we can do to strengthen those before I vote to move forward on any of these projects. I think it's important to have that, we're having these discussions, it's important to kind of solidify those discussions and put it down in writing so our applicants know what they're facing and what's the real requirements.
Is there a way to delay the vote to a future date?
It's already passed now, but it could be since one of us, I could vote to reconsider it because I voted no against it, and I would do that potentially in the future if we can get these things straightened out.
You'd have to do that now or in the next meeting.
Okay.
Once you pass the next meeting, it's done.
Okay.
The ordinance says they've got to wait a year.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
he
for him to
he
bring
can
it
make a
back up.
motion
He
to
brings it.
reconsider,
So he gonna resend it, yeah.
but he
Yeah.
has to do it this meeting or the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
If it's not reconsidered after the next meeting, then you have to
timeline for the
reapply
applicant?
and wait a year.
So
I mean, if we
whether or
could-
not it's worth a while?
If we can get that information and get it written into the ordinance.
Can't get it written into the
I don't know
ordinance.
how you're gonna do it that
can't.
quick. The planning commission meets on the 17th of March, so it is 2 weeks before March 31st. So, I mean,
Well, if Mr. Bellows were to make a motion to reconsider the board's denial, which he could do, because he voted in favor of the denial, then a new public hearing on the application, or I don't guess you need a new public hearing, you've had the public hearing, but the board could then take the matter up at a later date.
okay. So, I mean, that would give us 2 months to get the language, because it's got to go through the planning commission and the board. And that's typically a 60-day process at the fastest. So, that's a consideration, possibly.
Let me-
I
let
would
me ask a
consider that,
question.
but I'm not comfortable tonight because there's too many questions and that we just need to get this ironed out so it's solid on every application going forward. We need to have some, I understand we can't have, can't be applied to every project equally, but some of these things need to be, that we've been kicking around, need to just be written down and we need to modify the ordinance.
That's basically what I was saying at the joint meeting. So let me ask this question. Then do we want to consider any others at the present time until we make this part of the ordinance?
That was going to be my next comment,
Yeah.
is that we actually
Well, if we run
have,
into the same problem on the highway corridor overlay, then yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote the same way until we
Well,
straighten this out.
I think what we'll have to do is contact the next two who have applied and are in the queue, and one of which is here tonight, and maybe see if they are willing to,
Well, the board has a year once you take it up.
they do, yeah,
I don't know how long they've been in the queue.
since,
July, August, September,
yeah. So we can,
respectively.
yeah, I mean, until we get language in place, you know, that may satisfy.
So we looking at 2 to 3 months.
I would say at the earliest 2 months.
So we're not gonna consider any more of these until after we've
Well,
done this.
as Mr. Cornwell said, you have a year to act on a special exception application.
I mean, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying this highway corridor issue, we've got to get
Okay.
straight, and I'm not going to vote on any of them in the highway corridor until we get that straight.
Okay, well,
So anything not on
So if it's
3,
somewhere else and it's not affected by this, and our ordinance can take,
Okay.
and affects in our ordinance, then I'm fine with our ordinance overall. I just think this is an important issue. There's something I was concerned about from the get-go, and we need to get it right before we approve any of these projects, because once we open the door and approve any of them, then we're kind of set to follow that path going forward.
And let me ask you, this may, I may ask you this. You don't have to answer it. All right.
No.
She agreed to the 400 foot. What held you back?
It's just, I want to get it straight. I want to get it written down so we have it in our ordinance, and that's the only thing. I will reconsider this project with the 400-foot setback if we can get this straightened out. I just think it's important that we get it straightened out. We've been kicking these things around and mulling them,
Make our
and
job
and all of
easier.
us are not really sure about things, and I think it's just time
I agree
to
with that.
take a small pause and get this stuff straightened out. not gonna take that long, and then I think we can move forward and have a better feeling of what we're doing with these projects, because we still have a lot of unknowns with these small projects, I think, and we need to just make sure we're doing things right.
Well, the next two do not border the Highway Corridor Overlay District. So is it the board's wish to bring them, the way we had planned was one per month. So do you want to bring them forward, or do you want to wait until language is in place?
All right, Mr. Lee, what do you think?
Well, if the issue is with the 400-foot on the main corridor, then those are not an issue.
Yeah,
That's not an issue. The other issues that's coming up is that they farmland. I mean, it's farmland. So I don't know how that's gonna be resolved. It's farmland.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're gonna resolve that.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get to
Well, Craig had a good point. He was bringing up percentages. What percentage have we used up, and what percentage does this board want to see as the cap? And if we don't have a percentage, I'm not sure I'll vote for any of them.
Well, the Planning Commission has talked about that, and I know Mr. Cornwell had some concern about setting a cap, because that's arbitrary. He was much more, and I don't want to speak for you, but he was much more comfortable with setting setbacks from definable resources, such as wetlands or highways.
Right, and the other thing that we had talked about at one time was looking at a soil map.
Yeah.
As part of every application process, to see if in fact it was
Highly productive.
productive farmland, or if in fact it wasn't.
Because there's some farmland that is not that productive, that solar would probably be a good use for.
In New Kent, every application for rezoning or special use permits, as part of the application process, the soil map was included. And so they could look at the soil map and see what the use of the land would be, or it would be based upon the soils.
Did they make a blanket say they were not gonna allow solar on this particular type of
So
soil
they took
type?
it under consideration. Now, this wasn't solar, this was every application.
Okay,
Residential, business, commercial, industrial.
it was just a consideration.
Well, they took it in consideration to say, this is not productive farmland, therefore we should rezone it to residential, whatever.
I can see that, but if you just say it's solar, then I wouldn't be in favor of that. But if it's gonna be for every development, housing development, everything, then, okay.
I thought when we met with the planning commission, you all correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were talking about changing some setbacks to achieve some of these goals we wanted to, as far as that. And
Right.
so to me, that's sort of what I was thinking was the next step before we go approving a lot of these, to see, okay, what's gonna fall in and what isn't. And that's sort of where I was with it. as
Yeah,
far as that.
well, because Brian, we discussed that, and I know you working on the language, because we discussed that last week in the planning commission. So when were you planning on,
Yeah, the planning commission instructed me the other night that they want to see some of that language at their March meeting, March 17th, before I schedule it for a public hearing. So, I'm trying to ride that along as fast as I can, but, there again, I'm their staff person and kind of somewhat at their mercy, but,
Giddy up the stallions.
I will relay the message to them that time is of the essence, and it's time. We know the subject, this board does and the planning commission does backwards and forwards probably. And I'm not bragging on y'all, but I've gotten calls in the last 2 weeks from Page County, Rockingham County staff and people from all over the state saying, "Oh, I hear you guys know what you're doing. What do we do about this? What do we do about that?" Which I'm not qualified to guide solar projects in the Shenandoah Valley for sure. I have my hands full here, but yeah, I agree with y'all. I think the chapter 6 of the comp plan really needs to move forward as quickly as possible. And I think it may be, the language of revising a ordinance means that, an ordinance revision can be triggered by the board, or it can also be triggered by staff. What I could do, is at their March 17th meeting, create a discussion item, if you all think it's prudent, where I might present to them possible draft language amendments for the solar ordinance, and then that way they can look at both at the same time and maybe get some of these things in the ordinance. Some of y'all mentioned tonight a better fidelity to the highway corridor overlay district, and I think there's some language where that could now drag and drop into Article 28. If y'all think that that's prudent, I think I could do that. That way they would have it as a discussion item in March, and then
Public hearing in April, and then
April,
the
and then come
board
back to you in May.
in May. So,
Yeah.
Just-
Go ahead.
no, just one comment to what Mr. Lee said earlier about not being able to have it in book form, so to speak, that applies to every project. You know, that's the purpose of the special exception, because the board can place conditions on a special exception on a case-by-case basis. And as Mr. Corma has said, when it came down to setbacks on Route 3, you know, you need to be consistent in what you say. But, you know, I don't think that we'll ever have a boilerplate, you know, a model to look at that says every project has to fit this.
I agree, but we can definitely say that
We can
there'll
make it
be a
better.
500 setback on the highway
Yeah.
corridor, or 400 setback, and that can be a standard.
Yeah.
And if if they can't fit that standard, then it gets denied.
I agree with you, I just make that point.
We need to have standards, something that's legitimate you can make a decision on, not just something like Mr. Cornwell says, like a percentage of land or that, which is kind of willy-nilly.
And caps, and how many we're gonna entertain, and what is the end gonna look like?
And that's where maybe the setbacks can guide that.
Yeah, and
I mean,
instead,
that was my thinking when we talked about
Yeah.
it with the planning commission.
yeah, instead of a cap, maybe setbacks around wetlands or, you know, increased on the highway corridor overlay district.
Yeah.
That will limit.
That's what we had
Limited
talked about during the
historic
two board
districts.
meetings. But we also said at that board meeting that there were 2 or 3 in the queue that we're gonna go ahead and bring forward.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have made a decision then not to bring them forward. This wouldn't have happened. All right, so the question is, do we bring the others forward? And Mr. Lee's commented, Mr. Bellis?
I mean, my issues with the highway corridor overlay and the language that we have there, and I think the ordinance otherwise is good and can apply to projects that don't fall into that.
Okay,
So I'm okay hearing the other ones at this point.
that's not on the corridor, highway,
Yeah.
okay, Mr. Smith?
I'll listen, yes.
Okay.
I'll entertain them.
All right, Mr. Geezy?
Yes, I'll entertain.
All right, we'll bring them forward.
Could
Let's
I
get-
ask that, this is not in the ordinance, and I think staff can do this, and that's with every application for a rezoning or special use permit, the soil map be included as part of the application.
Soil maps, okay, be as part of the
Any
application,
rezoning or special use permit.
all right,
We can do that.
okay.
Thanks to Glenn.
Every application.
Yeah, you got it on.
Every application. Every application.
It's not a problem really, because we've got, you know, the overlay.
I just
on-
want to make sure it's
Yeah,
every
I know,
application.
yeah, I heard that word too. We've got a GIS layer for the soil map, so it's, you know, it's just a few more minutes.
We owe it to the citizens of the county to get this right, and
I agree with that, yep. All right, anything else from this, as far as the board, before we go to administrative? All right, Mr. Gill?
I have nothing else. no.
Nothing else? All right, well, I entertain a motion for adjournment, then. You got something?
are we
You got
going
the
into
closed
closed meeting?
meeting.
Oh, that's right. That's right, there you go. Go ahead, sir.
I move that the Board of Supervisors enter into a closed meeting for, 1, acquisition, disposition of real property per section 2.23711A3 of the Code of Virginia as amended. 2, contract negotiations per sections 2.23711A as the Code of Virginia amended. Number 3, legal matters per section 2.23711A8 of the Code of Virginia as amended. And number 4, personnel per section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia.
All right, you've heard the motion to go into a closed session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote, we in closed session. this session back, meeting back in session. I move that the Langston County Board of Supervisors adopt the following certification resolution. Whereas the Langston County Board of Supervisors convened in a closed meeting on February 24th, 2022, pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote on the motion to close the meeting to discuss personnel, legal matters, acquisition, disposition of real property, and contract negotiation in accordance with section paragraph 2.2-3711.A.1, 2.2-3711.A.8, and 2.2-3711.A.3, and 2.2-3711.A.20.29 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board of Supervisors that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Langston County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, number one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in a closed meeting to which this certification applies. And two, only such public business matters were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which this certification applies. Before a vote is taken on this resolution, is there any member who believes that there was a departure from the requirements of number one and number two above? If so, identify yourself and state the substance of the matter and why, in your judgment, it was a departure. All right, hearing no statement, I call the question. Mr. Bellows?
I certify.
Mr. Lee?
I certify.
Mr. Geezy?
I certify.
Mr. Smith?
I certify.
And Palin certifies. This certification resolution is adopted. All right. Yes, sir. Mr.
Mr.
Lee?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the county enter a contract to purchase property located at tax map 33-164 for a purchase price of $550,000.
Okay, you heard that motion?
And direct staff to close on the property.
Yeah, and direct staff to close on the property.
Okay, you've heard that motion. All in favor said aye.
Aye.
All right, that's a unanimous vote. Motion passed. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we make corrections to the county administrator's contracts, and I'll get my language here. Can't speak, it's getting too late. Under compensation, section 3, for his services, the county administrator employer agrees to pay the employee effective January 1st, 2022, an annual base salary of $138,500. I'm going to strike the second paragraph there that speaks to no raises for 3 years from the December 31st, 2021 period, and replace that with language that states that following a positive review, Don would receive raises commensurate with whatever the board votes for all other employees for that fiscal year. Finally, in section 4, I would amend the contract to say on or before December 1st of each year, the employee shall prepare and submit to the employee in writing a comprehensive report stating the activities of the employee for the previous year, specifically addressing the criteria, goals, and objectives established by the employer and the employee in the previous performance evaluation. And in the second part there, the employer shall evaluate the performance of the employee in writing yearly on or before January 31st of each year. Those changes would take effect again January 1st, 2022.
All right, you've heard that motion concerning the contract. All in favor said aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, that passes. Okay, anything else?
Just
All right.
thank you all very much.
All right.
Thank you for the hard work and the
Yes.
continual commitment
Yes,
to excellence.
with
that you've been
dedication.
doing.
Yep, with dedication.